As calm as can be.
There you go.
As calm as can be. Check it out, y'all. Mish is with me. Anthony Missionary Thomas of Wrestling Soup.
Love. Thank you very much for having me on, Corey.
Yeah, dude. I've been thinking, like, man, it's to me been something I felt has been really important for me to want to have a conversation with you on the record at some point, because to me, I really like to have conversations with people sincerely that have meant something to me in some way or the other.
Oh wow.
And I don't know if I told this to you or not, but I kind of feel like I have. But now that I have this opportunity and we have this space, and I want to make sure you feel very welcomed in this space. So before I say anything else, please feel very welcome and very safe. I'm excited to be having a conversation with you.
Thank you, Good. Corey. You know what? Kind of likewise. I think this is kind of cool to be able to talk to a man that inadvertently was a part of my history as well growing up.
Oh, yeah?
The CZW stuff with Sick Nick Mondo, being around during the Backseat Boys and stuff like that. I can almost pick your brain about the period of wrestling that I really fell in love with. So, yeah.
Oh, man. I would love to give you the opportunity to do that. But first, I want to acknowledge how discovering your Wrestling Soup podcast, probably in 2011, 2012.
Oh wow, yeah. Okay.
It really helped me a lot in a very down point in my life, and it really helped me discover podcasting. And podcasting has been such a major part of my life. So for the part that you've played in that, I want to on the record make sure I thank you and tell you that I have some real deep down love for you, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's wild to me because even though I've been doing Wrestling Soup for 12 years, technically, I've never done it for anything else other than to have a good time with my friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's literally what it is. You know?
It's so evident. Like it's.
Thank you, man.
And just for the backstory, in 2011, I had some brain surgery where I had to step away from wrestling. I had to step away from my identity. Like I was really like, all I am is wrestling. I don't know much else, and I don't feel like I had a kind of an identity crisis there for a little while, and I didn't really know how to come back to being who I was. Yeah. And hearing you and Joey have a good time.
Oh wow, man!
It really, I think it really affected me, and it helped me a lot. So I wanted to make sure if I got no other opportunity to say anything else to you, but the fact of how important that was to me.
Wow, man. I mean,
saying that on the record, knowing that also, there might be a day when one of us isn't here anymore. So I think a good part of me becoming a fan of yours and becoming a fan of the show is like you guys, some of the stuff you talk about, because it's not only about wrestling. I think when I got into it, I was also like at the time into like The Walking Dead, and you guys were talking about The Walking Dead. So it was like a bunch of it was like, oh, you don't have to be one thing.
Right.
You don't have to stay singularly focused.
Well, who talks like that? You know what I mean? Right. I mean, unless you're like a sports broadcaster or something like that. I mean, when you're having a conversation with somebody, who stays on one topic for 2 hours? I mean,
it seems so forced. It seems very forced.
Right. Thank you, man. Jeez, I'm kind of speechless.
It's
Or-
it's 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 it
big.
makes me a little speechless and hear that you said that I was a little bit of a part of something.
Oh,
I didn't know.
absolutely.
I didn't know
Absolutely.
that I was a part of that era for you, and I didn't know that I was
Well,
important at all. I mean, I was just a
CCW
little cog. I was like a little tiny cog in the wheel
doesn't
there,
matter. Doesn't
little
matter.
spoke on the wheel, a little cog in the machine.
That entire time on the indies, CZW, ROH, Chikara, PWG, like the 2000s of independent wrestling was amazing to me as a wrestling fan. Because I mean, you just came out of the Attitude Era, the the late 90s and stuff, and it was all gone. And I think some of the stuff that tried to replace it was good, and some of it was eh. But the CZW, like the homegrown indie feel, was, I think that's what people are trying to recapture now.
Yeah,
You can't.
it's
You can't.
impossible.
Right.
I
And
mean, it's improbable. Maybe it is possible, but that time felt so special. It felt ridiculously special. It felt like it was like we were. I felt we were the not we. Don't I don't want to include me.
yeah, include yourself. You were there.
I want to
Please.
say I want to say
Absolutely.
that that era felt like we were carrying the baton for ECW that they had just
Yeah.
dropped. And
You were the new generation. That's what it was. All of us younger fans, and I was a younger guy back then. I mean, I'm not dead yet, but
we all were younger back.
Oh my gosh, right. But I mean, even then, it's like you were the next generation. You were the hope. You guys literally brought in a whole new style. It was a lot more integrated. I mean, deathmatch wrestling. I mean, we saw ECW. I saw ECW, but the deathmatch wrestling style was mind blowing at the time. I hadn't really experienced it. I've seen FMW before that and stuff, but I hadn't seen it on our shores. I hadn't seen it in the US.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was cool as shit. It was straight up cool as shit. I looked forward, dude. I still have, and I mean, I have to dust off a DVD player nowadays, but I still have all the bootleg RF videos that were all over the place covering CZW and old ROH and all that shit. Like, I remember us burning. Like, I don't know if you were, well versed in the internet back then.
Yeah,
but I remember going to all the torrent sites and stuff like that just to try and get new CZW stuff, just to try and get new Chikara or PWG, because it wasn't readily available unless you went to the website sometimes, And
back then, did you listen? I'm sorry. Did you read through CZW fans' message boards and shit like that?
Yes, I was a forum hopper back in the day. Brutal as shit.
Yeah. It's funny. I just talked about this a couple of days ago. My friend Ryan, who eventually went on to post on there under the name Supreme Douche. That was he was a real good friend of mine. Very, very good friend. We were friends way before wrestling had ever started, before it was ever like CZW, before all that. Just from outside of wrestling, we were friends. And he was like, bro, I got a screen name on CZW fans message board that I'm surprised I was able to get it, but I'm so glad I was. And I was like, oh, what's that? And he's like, it's CK Corey Castle. And I was like, are you posting under CK Corey Castle? And he's like, yeah, I started to. I'm like, and then people were like, oh, look at Corey trying to put himself over. And like all the boys in the back were like, you fucking mark. And being a mark wasn't cool. Being a mark back then wasn't cool. Like it changed a lot. Like the winds of change.
Yeah, I used to do the CZW forums. I don't know if you remember the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, dude, I was on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I never posted, but I would read all this stuff. The funny part about it was DOI was very important to the Northeast independent circuit. Yeah. I remember meeting guys at wrestling shows and then being like, oh, dude, I read your name on DOI all the time. Like people would always say DOI. Oh,
Yeah.
I see your name and results on DOI all the time. But like the funny part about that is like most of the time when anyone talks to me about like wrestling stuff that I do, they go, oh, like, oh, CZW. And they bring up stuff. I'm like, dude, I was a teenager.
Right.
I'm an adult man now. Like,
And you were clean shaven and everything.
yeah, I was clean shaven because I couldn't grow anything yet. I wasn't able to grow facial hair.
Yeah, well, that stuff is so important, man. And I think that a lot of the, I don't want to say a lot of the kids, but there's a lot of kids today that just, they don't even know. They just don't even know. It's not even a matter of they don't want to watch it. They just don't even understand. They don't even know where it comes from.
Yeah.
You know, I see people even talking about wrestling from the 80s and how bad it was. And it's like, man, I don't know about that. You had to have the 80s till you got to the 90s till you got till now. It's all part of a chain reaction, you know, like all of it's so important. You know?
I hate to, I really dislike sounding like the old guy.
Yeah.
Who's like, oh, there was a different time back then. It was better. But the thing is, like, when wrestling was protected, when there wasn't as much inclusion,
right,
it seemed like the only kind of people who got into it were tough enough to handle it.
Yeah.
And it seems like at a certain point, they just started like letting people, I think I started to notice it happening when they would just let people sign up for the wrestling school to get their money. I think that's when I think it started, where it was like, oh, we'll just include somebody, even if they don't belong. It used to be, and I still have a habit of doing it, and maybe I'm a dick for it, but like when I'll do seminars or I'll like sit in on training and like help out or whatever, try to help trainees.
Yeah.
I'm like mean to them. And I'm like, it's not me trying to be mean, but you have to understand this is my instinct to weed out the not tough.
Right.
To weed out who doesn't belong, because the way I looked at it coming in, and for sure I spent a good amount of my wrestling career not being good at all. Like, I don't think I got good in the ring until maybe like 2013 or something like that. It like took me a really long time. So what cracks me up is when people like talk to me about stuff I did when I was a teenager, like that was the most important stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but
I mean, if they're saying that's the most important stuff, that's not fair to you.
Right.
I'm just saying that it was an important time.
Right. Oh,
you know, I mean, I know you're not directing it towards me. I'm just thinking in my own head. And I'm like, oh, but that CZW, ROH stuff, like that entire time was really important to me. And I know all of my friends, it was important to them. Matter of fact, it was, I think, when probably about 2011, 2012, 2013 is when a lot of my old school, my diehard, ride or die WCW, WWF, WWE guys, you know, the guys that would go with me to random ROH shows in the middle of bumfuck Illinois, you know, that's when they finally started to die off. And it wasn't because of the independence. It was because of the overall depression of the wrestling product at the time, you know, and there was good things, but
I mean, I'm sure you've heard JR say it, like the fat shaming for wrestling fans. Like, it's like people look at wrestling fans, or people look at people who like wrestling and think that like we're stupid. Like we don't like we're like dumb to the fact that it's a work. It's like, oh yeah, we know that it's a work. Like you maybe are missing a piece of wonder from your heart and your soul that maybe you need to find a thing you enjoy and watch someone shit all over it.
Right. I mean, dude, there's nothing wrong with criticism, but the first thing you think of when you think of wrestling critics is fat guy living in mom's basement. You know what I mean? And you're right with the wrestler stuff. They think it's all bodybuilder meathead stuff, you know? And it's like, it takes a lot of talent to be able to fool the audience for a living.
You know, it was funny. I was trying to do this on stage. I think I did it maybe twice, but I would talk about like the body shaming that like gym dudes get.
Yeah.
It's like go, oh, like you're just some meathead. But I'm like, do you think I do this because I think I look better than you? Something's wrong with me.
Right.
Like this, the same as.
Well, why did you get into it? Now, there's a curious question, because we were just talking about the generation today and the generation back then. But what was your spark? What made you decide, hey, I'm gonna not only am I gonna get into it, into the gym and train and stuff like that, but what kept you there?
Well, I don't think I discovered weights and like lifting and the gym until like 2007.
Right.
Like I was just like some kid who trained at wrestling school, and that was like my only exercise was just getting in the ring and training. And I didn't discover like, but the funny thing is, I actually was taught how to lift weights when I was younger by Justice Payne, and I never,
Oh,
ever,
wow.
I never, ever took it up. Like he really, and the funny thing about that is like, and I've never spoke about this publicly, but it seems like anybody who's ever been like super important and super like went out of their way to really help me out when they didn't need to help me out has been named Chris. And that's it's a weird sync. I don't know why it exists, but for sure, Justice Payne really went out of his way to like teach me how to. He was like, "Oh, let's try." He would get in the ring with me and try. I remember, like, I have distinct memories. I can remember them like they were yesterday. Being at the wrestling school, and it was like me, Cash, GQ, Jude,
Wow.
and Justice Payne, and Dahmer and Eddie were like in the other ring. We had two rings, and Justice Payne kept going like, "Hey, can you try?" I remember him like getting me for like a back body drop. He's like, "Land on your feet, like backflip on your feet," and like he was like, "It'll be really cool if you start doing that." And I did it that one time. I never did it again.
Wow. See, how do you say that you're not a part of that dais, man? Look at all the name drops you just did. That was a major part of independent wrestling in the 2000s. Those guys, man, they were household names among us marks.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, it's funny, man, because when I started training, I was 15 years old. I was still in high school.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
When I started training at the CZW schools, I was 15 years old when I had started.
Oh, wow.
And like all these people were people who I was going to every one of the shows, and I was doing ring crew even before I started training. So I knew all these people, and then I I would be watching them as a fan of wrestling, as a fan of indie wrestling, and then I started meeting them all, and then I started like knowing them. Like I have distinct memories of like I used to like draw CZW wrestlers in my notebook when I was a kid, like in school. And I remember like writing the CZW logo all over shit. Like most people would put like bands they liked. I would put like CZW. I would draw pictures of Mondo, and then like, and then like later on, I became like really good friends with some of these people. Like John Dahmer. John Dahmer is very, very important as far as like a male role model. Like I didn't have a dad, and Dahmer really was that man, that like male role model in my life. Like he would like check my report cards and shit. Like,
get the fuck out of here! Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool as hell, man.
And like Nick Burke, still one of my close friends. I still talk to Nick Burke all the time.
Wow.
I remember my first time at the CZW school. The first time when I first went to try out, I met Johnny Kashmere.
Oh, nice.
And Johnny Kashmere asked me if my favorite wrestler was Trent Acid. And I was like, he's not my favorite, but I know him. I like him. I think he's really good. And he was like, I think you're trying to be Trent Acid. Like he, like my like nickname for a little while was Jimmy Acid when I was like a little kid. Like Ed O'Mac gave me that name.
Nice.
And it was such a cool thing to be a fan of this thing and then be included with this thing. And then this thing, like wasn't like it wasn't like on TV yet. It was just like on tapes and like people didn't know. And then to have debuted and then they get TV, then they get the arena. Right. And it was like, oh man, I'm a part of something, huh? But at the same time, I can't remember feeling like I was ever a star then. I don't remember thinking that I was good. I don't remember thinking that I was good at all.
Is
I
that
felt
just
like
a personal opinion, or is that what people have told you? Because I think that would be a little weird if people would say that to you. But I mean, having self-doubt is part of humility. I think everybody, if you're trying to be a good human being, of course you're going to be humble about what you've done and what you do, because arrogance is just, being that level of ego is not good for anyone. So
yeah, it's pretty gross.
Yeah. Right.
I remember just being like kind of going through the motions, and I remember now thinking back on it is through the early 2000s, I remember coming back from every match and not remembering anything from the match, like having been concussed or something.
Shit,
like,
dude. Yeah.
And then being like, well, that's probably why I wasn't good, because I was doing it wrong, or I was getting stiffed. It was stiff as shit. I remember like everybody hit real hard, right. and just the fans were so brutal. The fact that like at one point when Mike Burns was the booker, there was the run sheet in the back said no psychology. Don't
shit.
No psychology.
Wow.
Don't do psychology. So like a lot of times it was just moves for the sake of moves,
right.
And it was head drops everything was head drops. Everything was unprotected chair shots, head drops.
Yeah, and there was a lot of that.
Yeah. Those pops and stuff. It's funny now when I think about it too, because I gone through like the brain stuff and having the brain surgery and going all the way back, and I go, oh man, do I regret any of those concussions? Do I regret any of that stuff? And then I think about the dopamine rush and the validation and the gratification from that audience pop. And I'm like, oh, I got just hooked real young on that. And I still chase it. And I'm still after it all these years later.
Yeah, but you don't have to get concussions anymore to do that.
No. But as far as like, figuring it all out and learning how to work, I think.
Mean, do you feel like the industry is a lot safer now than it even was in the mid 2000s?
Well, it's safer for sure. As far as like, there wouldn't be a moment back then where somebody wouldn't bully you or say something gross to you all the time.
Right.
I remember coming into a locker room with I saw Johnny Cashmere and Z-Bar were sitting in the locker room, and I walked in and I had a smile on my face, and Bar was like, "You're always smiling. Stop it." And I'm like, "Oh man."
Right.
Like, just want to extinguish my shine real hard.
Yeah. I meant safer, not necessarily in the terminology of like bullying or anything else like that.
Oh, you're talking about like well, it's strange because it's a different caliber. Like you find yourself matched up with different caliber types of athletes. Like when I was lower on the card, I was going up against other people who were really low on the card.
Yeah.
And like people who had just as much experience as me and stuff like that. I think at one point when it was me and Jeff tagging, when me and Niles were tagging, they like they would bring teams in just to beat us.
Right.
Like we were just like the jobber team. Like when I have a joke that I think I don't know. It's not a joke. Like I've never done it on stage or anything, but I was saying like, oh, remember the tag team Dunn and Marcos? Like they were something in Ring of Honor for a minute. Yeah, we did the job to them. No big deal. They pinned me clean in the ring. Where they at? Where they at now? Remember All Money Is Legal? Remember Dirty Rotten Scoundrels? Where are they at now? Where's everybody else who was better than me? Who like came in just to beat me? Where are they at?
You know what's really wild? And I know you've probably seen this. And I think it happened, I want to say almost like 4 or 5 months ago now. But there's this weird need to still shock the world and at the same time try to get their dopamine rush. Who was the wrestler? Was it might have been GCW, it might have been some farm fed, but that cut off his finger in the match? Yeah, I don't remember his name. We even covered it on the show, and I forgot the guy's name. But it was just this point that some people will go to the form of mutilation. Still, like I remember back in the day when you guys, well, not you directly, but I mean, even when Nick Mondo used like the weed whacker on his stomach, and the fans would bring some of the craziest shit to the events, especially out in Philly and stuff like that. Like, it was wild. I mean, it was more than just like light tubes, which light tubes have been used in a million ways in different companies and stuff like that. But you'd see things like actual kitchen sinks, like the ceramic fucking sinks. And I'm like, Jesus, you could kill somebody with that fucking thing, you know? And it was amazing that was even allowed back then. And the fact that you have people out there today chopping off digits.
Dude,
you know?
I remember Sammy Callahan was texting me about. He's like, "Yo, do you have a stun gun? Do you have a taser? Can you get us a taser?" And I remember being like, "No, I don't know where to get it." He's like, "Oh yeah, me and Danny Havoc want to use a taser." I'm not participating in that. I'm not gonna do that.
Do the shaky leg, yeah.
And then the funny thing about that memory specifically, because I recently was thinking about it, because my girl has this fly swatter that would when you hit it, you can electrocute it. You can electrocute. And I was like, hit me with that, babe. And she's like, no. And I was like, come on, just hit me. And I like fed her like the safe part of my back. I was like, just hit me with it. And I was like, and just like turn that zap on. And she's like, I won't do it. And I was like, come on. I was just hitting the thing, and I hit myself with it. And I was like, see, now hit me with it. And she hit me with it, and I was like, it's nothing. Right. I don't feel anything. Right. I was like, I'm gonna start bringing this with me to the ring. It'll be my cornet, my cornet, my racket.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Because I mean, my faction, my current faction, my group that I've started, I'm calling it the Spark. So what better way?
Nice.
What better way than to have something that sparks as the signature weapon?
That's very good, man. But yeah, no, I mean, I was always a fan of wrestling myself. You know, like it's interesting how you started to find your own way into it and stuff like that. When you were growing up, who were your heroes? Who were the guys that inspired you?
I would say mostly.
Yeah.
I would say mostly it would have been like Chris Jericho and Edge and Christian. Like those were the guys that I think Michaels, Triple H, X-Pac, like those were the guys that like made me go, I want to do this. Like, I'm not so sure I'm going to let people go, you're too small or you're too young. Like, cause that's what I got lots of.
Right.
Lots of people were like, you're too small. I was like, asshole, I'm 14 years old. Of course I'm too small.
Oh yeah. But I mean, guys like Spike Dudley were in ECW killing themselves and stuff like that too. WWE side, you had Crash Holly and others. Like, tiny guys were a big part of the company going into the fucking Attitude Era versus the 80s where there was just nobody that was small, you know? So that's awesome.
So what was the thing that like got you into wrestling? What was like the main spark in your head that was like, yes, that's what the thing
I wanted to get close to my family. My aunt was a huge wrestling fan. Got me involved in WWF back in the 80s and stuff. I had family up in Indiana, and in the part of Indiana that there was no WWF on TV. It was just WCW. So every time I would go see family, I'd start talking about, all these guys from WWF, and they just look at me like I'm an asshole. And it's like, and then they're showing me WCW stuff, which is when I saw Vader for the first time, and Luger and Sting, and like, I was like, oh, okay, this is different. But yeah, it was just kind of a way for me to bond with my family, and then I started falling in love with it itself. And then I started noticing, oh look, I'm watching it on my own, and I'm talking like 6, 7 years old as a kid, waking up in the middle of the night to watch Saturday night's main event,
Mhm.
So yeah, man. But that's how it started off. Um, by the time the Monday Night Wars happened and the Attitude Era happened and everything else like that in ECW, I was already hooked into watching anything I could. I was watching Japanese stuff. I was watching Lucha Libre. Like there was a point in time, which I don't even know if fans are like that today. Maybe they are. I think it's a lot more easier for them to get because, like,
Way
I mean,
easier.
oh,
Way
it was
easier.
totally about the tape trading back in the day. Like that was a legit thing.
Mhm.
And it's funny because you try to explain that to people. I'm like, no, no, no. We were physically trading VHS copies of shit
Mhm.
just to get new stuff. I would lose track of who gave what to whom. Like it was almost as if you traded something, just don't expect it back. You've got something different, and then it keeps going back and forth. But
I never was in the tape trading. Uh, I would watch tapes that like would be left at the school or something. I would bring them home and watch those.
right.
But I never like traded tapes with people. It would just be like if somebody had a tape, they'd leave it at the school
Yeah.
or they'd bring it over my house and we'd watch it and then they'd leave and bring it with them.
Right. Oh yeah.
Stuff
No,
like
this
that.
was high school, man. We'd come up
Mhm.
there, we'd smoke a joint and pass off some tapes. I mean, that's literally what it was, So
Bro, I didn't become pothead or stoner. I didn't become that until my 30s. Like that
oh
didn't.
wow, really?
Yeah, I didn't smoke, dude. I debuted in CZW as Corey Castle 3 months before I ever lost my virginity.
Oh wow. Shit.
Like I was such a like a I just all I wanted to do was like
Russell.
I
Yeah.
wanted to I wanted to make sure that I started to become who I wanted to be, and I didn't think
Well,
if
damn, Corey. I
if
mean,
I
wrestling is a real part of your, like a real fucking part of your life. Then it was
yeah.
there for you for big moments. Then I mean, if you're, wow, dude, very very unique story. Yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yes, the summer of 2002 was a very pivotal moment in my life.
Hey, man.
I said, I was like,
as long as you lose it, sir.
and like I said, I didn't. I mean, I had tried smoking weed, but I didn't become like a pothead who smoked all the time. Like nowadays, I smoke every day. But back then, nope, that is
Wow.
not a part of my life. And like drinking, smoking, sex, girls, none of that stuff. Also, can I also mention? No girls wanted to have sex with me. It was not like it wasn't. I wasn't any kind of prize or anything to
Wow. Yeah.
because because of this because long hair didn't become cool until recently.
Yeah. Well, long hair was great for me. Maybe it was just different parts of the country, man. I was doing okay with Chicago.
Now you've
Yeah.
inspired me to feel like it's important
Oh
to
yeah, I carry mine down. I actually just got mine cut. It was a lot longer. I just had to cut it. It was just too fucking hot in the summer, having hair all
So
the way down your back.
were you just here? Were you just in Philly?
Yeah. Actually, I passed through Philly a couple of weeks ago. I was going up to DC for AwesomeCon, so I
Mm.
was just there. I was living up there for about a year, right outside by. Do you know where Schwenksville is?
That's where my old tag team partner Matt Bomboy lives.
That's where I was at. I was living on Schwenksville.
I was just there. I was just there like 2 weeks ago.
Oh no, shit, nice,
Yeah, yeah.
beautiful little area, dude. I've honestly fallen in love with the entire state of Pennsylvania. I really have. So for as many years as I've lived in Chicago and Chicagoland, lived in Indiana, lived in all sorts of different places, man. PA is it's fucking breathtaking. It really is. Especially when you get out into the to the mountains and the forests and stuff. Oh, just gorgeous. I want to live there again. It just right now, just saving up to get our first house. Get married, get my first house, and then we'll see where we go from there. So,
how old are you, Mish?
I will be 42.
Oh, okay. So we're close in age, you and I. I am 38 years old.
Oh, there you go.
38
Yeah, I think you're the same age
young.
as Joe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. The funny thing about it is I don't think we've ever run across each other at shows. Like I don't think we were ever in the same like scene. Like I think I've only been to New England in that scene probably like twice. Like I think I worked for NECW for Shelton Goldberg or whatever. I wrestled for that guy maybe twice, and that was like 2010 maybe. Gotcha, I mean it's been a very, very long time.
Yeah, no, I was never up in the entire New England area. I wasn't up to Boston probably until 2020. It was the very first time I even went to Boston. Me and Joe met because we were both fans of the Minority Report and the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show stuff back in the day. And I mean, I was working with them, but
talk about the Tom Cruise movie. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I haven't seen the new one yet. Is the new one good? I keep hearing people tell me.
I forgot about it until you just mentioned it, and now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, dude, it was awesome. I loved
it. Yeah, man, I haven't been up there, but it's a nice area too. It's just it's funny how things change your life and how people that you meet completely alter, what you're going to do in life. Because I mean, in 2010 and 2011, I was still working with my broadcasting degree. I was basically doing work with terrestrial radio. I was the guy doing voiceover commercials for AM radio, from Wakanda rodeo stuff to like eat it, big gyms, like shit like that, and that's how I got started. Like I was always a fan of radio. I was always a fan of terrestrial radio, terrestrial media and stuff like that. So, I mean, going along with wrestling, I was always under the assumption it was like, man, why aren't there more wrestling-based shows on terrestrial radio? And I mean, you can go back into it and stuff like that, and people will bring up, Vince Russo is obviously one of the more famous people in wrestling that came from, terrestrial radio and stuff like that. But yeah, no, for the most part, it was always a local thing. There was no real national coverage. ESPN didn't give a shit about wrestling at the time, and neither did Fox Sports, barely and stuff. So even in 2010, 2011, it was kind of like an empty field. So when I got into it, and I started doing Wrestling Soup with Joe, it was a chance to do something that other people really weren't doing on a national level. And podcasting, even in 2010, was small. I mean, I started in 2003, back when they didn't even call it podcasting yet, because Apple iPods didn't coin the term yet. Apple didn't coin the term, and it was called online radio.
I don't feel like podcasting is even as big of a deal as it should be. I feel like
it is.
Like when I talk to people, like I work from home, and I was in like, we have this chat that everyone's in, and I was like, do any of you guys listen to podcasts?
Right.
They don't even know what podcasts are.
Wow.
Like that, and it seems like every job I've worked at, when I say like, do you listen to podcasts? Nope. Don't. Well, like, and it seems like it's huge. It seems like it's huge because we're inside of it.
Right.
But it's not.
It's a mixture. So there's different kinds of ways to look at podcasts. Like there's podcasts that are homegrown, like me, like you, homegrown. We take care of everything ourselves. We update our own stuff. We don't have a crew or a staff behind us working to make sure that all of our production is on point, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like everything that you do is being done by you. That's the level of podcast that I want to say 80% of people fall into as far as creators. Then you get to the next level, which is kind of like the people that started like us, but caught that big wave and then started to get millions of followers and millions of listeners a week and stuff like that. That goes up to the next tier. Now that tier makes a lot of money. Companies like mid-roll, advertisers, sponsorships. There are people clearing 100,000, 200,000 a month on the fucking regular. And they have a full staff that they cater to and everything else like that. And then there's the top tier, which are sports shows, talk shows that are created and hosted by terrestrial radio, terrestrial media, stuff like Sony and Sports Illustrated coming out with their own podcast, the ESPN Zone podcast. They're sinking real money into that. There's a real board op, there's real staff like PD, everything. So, and that goes into an upper tier where that kind of sponsorship money is, we'll never see that.
Well, I was laughing at like when Corey Graves got a podcast on the WWE's podcast or whatever, and I was like, I bet you he'll get more downloads in the first like minutes than I've ever had for the accumulative time I've been doing my show.
It's wild. I don't know what the formula is, man. Like I've had people ask me that over the years because I'm not the most knowledgeable person on wrestling at all. Joey is a fucking encyclopedia. Kevin Castle is an encyclopedia. That's not my strength. That's never been my strength. My strength is doing everything else. You know, you need the everything else guy. And that's kind of where I've always been. And it's like, you know, well, how do you know, what's going to be good? I don't fucking know. I don't know what's going to work. I know what topics to bring up. I know what's silly. I know how to engage people. I know how to incite people sometimes, on purpose. I would never compare it to wrestling, but in a way it's about trying to control your audience in the way of having them interested in what you have to say, or at least react to what you have to say. Because the whole point is you want them to tune in again next week. You want them to tune in to the next episode. So you're not going to be like, even when we were talking before all this started, I mean, we had a slight issue with the audio because you were animated and you knocked it off. And you're like, this is the price I get for being animated. But that's what you want to do, because that animation, it keeps people engaged. It keeps people interested, So I don't know. I don't know the formula for success, man. Like
I'm a hyperactive boy.
That's great.
A little too hyperactive on that first intro I was trying to do. I was like flailing all over the place.
But could you imagine you doing a monotone? Hi.
Oh boy, no. Yo, bro. The thing that I think I get a dose of that maybe you don't get, because you don't really work with guests. That's not really something you do. But man, getting guests that are like, shit, this sucks. It's a hard sell trying to act like you're animated over some shit you're not really enthused about.
Right. Oh yeah. That's part of the game though too. That's what makes you a good interviewer. That's what makes you interesting, is the fact that you can try and pull that out of other people. You want to be able to pull stories out of people. You want to pull people's opinions out of them where they don't want to let go of them, Dude, even that Bigfoot show, it was the very first show that I listened to, it was funny. It was hilarious because I'll be honest, the Bigfoot guy was a little stale. He was a little rigid. But dude, you brought him out. You made his ass laugh with the big shoe joke. I fucking died after that. Did you ever think of just leaving big shoes around the floor? I'm fucking dying. I'm like, that's great. You're literally fucking with his entire profession, but in a comical way, not in a hazing kind of way. I loved it,
man. I for sure want to make sure, because I know what I do as far as like the shit I'm into isn't the same shit that everybody's into either. So I wouldn't want someone to look at the shit I do and just try to like make a mockery of it or make me feel shame for it.
Right.
So I definitely wouldn't want to give that to anybody else. That's I wanted to make that dude fully feel seen and heard, because that shit is interesting.
Yeah.
Like that, for sure. All the stuff I was saying was a shoot. Like I was like, dude, you look like you're having fun doing that.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I was not faking it. And that's, I think when it comes to being a fake wrestler, I can't
Right.
being somebody who I'm not unless I'm a heel in front of people. Like
Right.
I can for
Right.
sure
But
be a
that's part of the gimmick, anyways. That's part
yeah.
of the yeah. Right.
It's part of the profession. It's just nature of the beast, tricks of the trade kind of shit.
Yeah.
But
Damn.
what I was thinking about, and I think that it'd be fun to talk to you about this idea that I had.
Shoot.
Not to say that it would ever actually be a thing, but I was thinking about like the major wrestling news channels
Hmm.
and the people who get the most attention. Um, all of like the top shows, all the like the most uh, gone to sources that people have. If there
Right.
was some sort of like CNN for pro wrestling news,
Oh
like
wow.
and how that could probably drum up some actual viewers for wrestling, because you have somebody kind of like, hate to use the word, mansplaining to you what's been going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes when you're watching wrestling, you're just like, I don't get the context of this, and it's not something like a lot of people will just shrug at it and say it's not for me.
Right.
Well, maybe a little context would assist.
There's been multiple attempts at that, and I think that's something that still hasn't really been established as to who is the cornerstone of at least wrestling news and stuff. I know What Culture once upon a time were those guys. I know Scott Keith, and I think it was like Bleacher Report were those guys, like where it wasn't just wrestling, but here we talk baseball over here, we'll talk hockey over here, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
And that was kind of all encompassing too. But as far as covering all of wrestling, like on the level of independence, C-level promotions, stuff like that, I don't know if there's anybody, man.
Like,
DOI used to be close to that back in the 2000s too.
Yeah.
They were real good at that, but once again, small area.
It was
I know
just a
that-
website. It was just a message
Right.
board.
Right.
But I'm thinking about it like on a larger scale, like kind of like, you turn the TV on and like Rachel Maddow. Instead of watching Rachel Maddow, there's Brian Alvarez, and he's talking to you about what's going. Like Brian Alvarez could be like the Ryan Seacrest of
Right. No, I get you. Right.
of like the wrestling news channel or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, bro, you're already charging people $12 to watch you do the news.
Right.
Like, why not have it be on TV where other people can watch it?
Man, I don't know. I know didn't the UK used to have that? They used to have Sky Sports or whatever.
Oh yeah, okay.
And they would have 24 hours of totally random wrestling stuff. So it wasn't just WWE, it was also ROH, it was also CZW, it was also old ECW stuff that wasn't available at the time. And yeah, I miss that. I wish there was more of that. IWTV is okay for that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever checked them out. I have a subscription. I know I bought Joey a subscription, which is nice for like the independent wrestling. But once again, you're right. It's not news, and it doesn't cover everything. It just covers the smaller side. But I wish there was. I think you have a great idea. I wish there was. I'd watch.
We're just gonna wish about it. We'll just
I wouldn't even know how to start something like that because
me either. Like
it involves trying to get a hold of some pretty big people from the get.
Well, on top of that, I want to thank you because a good amount of the people I reach out to decide to not reach back out, not even read my or like leave me on red or something like that. So I can imagine trying to get into those channels or trying to get into those circles would be difficult because, dude, I feel like sometimes when people are too popular, like they're not checking their DMs.
Yeah,
I feel like
I don't even know if it's something like that, but I mean, can you imagine how many DMs these people get though too?
Right, probably tons.
Right,
and that's why they don't check them because there's so many of them. You just get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah,
that's why I've been super grateful to get some of the guests that I've gotten, like that I had no business actually getting these people to be on my podcast, because I for sure can't offer them like, oh, you're going to get new fans from this. This is going to
Right.
get you new followers. Nope, nope. You'll get it'll be a tree falling in the woods, but you'll have a benefit of having a cool chat and hang with me.
You're selling yourself short. I think you'd be surprised as to what kind of people watch just the most random things, man. I don't know. Like maybe you used to do something like this too, but do you remember Blog Talk Radio?
Yeah,
It's
dude.
still around, but it back in the mid to 2000s, I would sit there and I would jump on Blog Talk Radio at 2 in the morning and just listen to the most insane shows out of the blue for no reason. Like sometimes it was like, actual religion, and there was some guy who was a Baptist who's like screaming into his telephone, and he's going nuts. And then there's other people that are like psychics at 3 in the morning, and like this shit was interesting, and the people that were hanging around this were interesting. Like they're totally off the wall, but at the same time, it's like, wow, this is. I would never find myself in that situation listening to something like this, but knowing that it's here, I caught myself going back and listening to other crazy things too. So sitting there and believing that nobody's actually going to see something, you'd be surprised, man. People watch the most random things. It's almost as like it's like flicking the remote on television in the middle of the night. There's nothing on TV. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go check out some podcasts. Go check out Twitch. Going to go check out YouTube. That's what people do now. People will totally go YouTube surfing all night long and just watch the most random stuff, because you'll see comments of people going, well, I'm in that strange part of YouTube again. Yes, you are.
It's part of me talking. I've talked a ton about consistency. I've talked a lot about continuing to beat your drum, and I feel like if I was like, no one's listening and this sucks and I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it for getting lots of listeners. I'm doing it so that I'll continue to get good at it.
Right.
I want to get good at it so that when the stakes are higher and there's way more people listening, entertaining them, giving them something that's like gives them value and gives them maybe some lessons that they can apply to their life. I just I want to make sure when I started doing this, I was like, I just want to make sure that this would be the type of show I'd want to listen to if I were going to listen to a podcast. I'd want it to be similar to the thing, because everybody who you talk to,
we brought that up earlier, because you can tell the difference between somebody who's having a good time talking on their show versus somebody who's regimented, sticking to a script, reading the bullet points. Different type of show, man.
Well, the you actually made me think of, and I was actually talking about this earlier today. The Blog Talk Radio shows that used to ask me to be guests a lot, and I remember doing a lot of them, but they'd wind up asking me the same questions many times. They'd say, oh, when was your first match? How'd you get your start? What inspired you? I'm like, bro, go on Blog Talk Radio and search my name. You'll find the answers to these questions.
True, very true. But you know what? That's got to be a nature of your side of the business, though, too. Because I think when somebody asks you specifically, like, what got you into it, what brought you to the dance, it's not necessarily because, I mean, it matters your statement and stuff like that. But I think it's also a way for the people that are asking you this to try and connect to themselves. Did the same thing that made me fall in love with wrestling make him fall in love with wrestling and go do it?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's almost like a reflection of oneself. And I don't know how deep some of the interviews that you've had were.
You can tell that when they're asking that question, they're reading it off a piece of paper and then not paying attention to you answering the question.
Yeah,
I super prefer to be guests on podcasts where people like throw a very obscure thing at me that I would have done, and I'm like, I don't remember, or like, oh, that's thanks for bringing that up. Like,
right.
My first IMDb credit that I got in like 2005 or 6 or something like that was I was in this like very independent comedy movie wasn't not funny, not funny, but but they gave me this line in it. It was supposed to be a comedy movie. Nobody there was funny. I remember thinking like, how come nobody in this comedy movie is funny?
Right.
Like, and I remember like it was supposed to be this party scene that was taking place at a gym after the gym closed, and it was like the gym was closing down, and this was like the final hurrah at the gym, and they wanted to set up the shot where the guy was like daydreaming in the hot tub at this gym,
Right.
and in his daydream, some hot chick came up to him and was talking to him, and then like he was going through the daydream, and then somebody called his name, and he went to stand up, and he was supposed to have a boner, but like them setting it up, the thing kept falling apart. Like whatever like prop they try to use, it kept falling apart. And while they were trying to get a new fake
boner,
fake boner, I just kept like making the other extras laugh. Like, I was just like cracking them up because like I was bored, and it was an overnight shoot, and nobody was making me laugh, so I was making me laugh and making these people laugh too. So then the director dude comes up to me and he goes, "Hey Corey, real quick, I thought he was gonna be like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, I need you to shut up." But he was like, when the dude stands up and he's got this boner, I want you to be like, "Bro, you got a boner, man." Like, and I was like, okay, sure. So I did that.
Right.
And my first IMDb credit was credited as Boner Guy.
Boner Guy. Nice.
So I love it when like I'll go like on somebody's podcast and they'll bring something like that up. I'm like, whoa, you looked like that's cool to me that you seek that out.
That is cool, man. That is neat. That's a hell of a first credit too. Boner Guy. That's great.
Boner Guy.
Boner. Man, yeah, I guess you know what? I haven't really done that many interviews. I've done a few, over the years. I don't know. Interviews can sometimes be uncomfortable, I think. Like, not always. One-on-one is, I think, a lot easier than believe it or not, two-on-one. Because like two-on-one, I think there's expectations sometimes. And there's been some people that we've talked to that totally felt out of place with me and Joe. And it's like, you could feel that. You could feel like they're uncomfortable. And it's like, sorry, not trying to piss you off or nothing, just asking questions. And then all of a sudden, then that interview becomes rough too. So it's like, it's weird because you have to be on the same wavelength almost, or at least in the vicinity of the same wavelength with people that you talk to. Because I'll give you credit, interviewing a Bigfoot dude out of the clear blue, and I see that, I mean, obviously 267, or is it 68 now? 267.
276.
276, dyslexia. 276 episodes. How many of those were interviews?
275 of them. Maybe?
Wow. Damn, Corey.
I think the first two episodes were just me by myself.
Right.
And I was trying to explain what the show was going to be and trying to give some perspective. That's why I say that I decided to go with the title Evolving with Corey Castle, not just because my name's Corey Castle, but it's like you go from episode 2 to now, hopefully I'm a whole other guy.
Yeah.
My perspectives have changed a lot and who I am has changed a lot. I look back at like 2013 or 14 and who I was in locker rooms and like the uncomfortable awkwardness that I used to have. Like, and I didn't share anything about me and nobody knew much about me. I was really kind of an introvert,
right.
But at the same time, I was doing comedy. I was doing stand-up comedy already, like at open mics and at clubs and stuff.
But shit, that's cool as hell too, man.
But at shows and stuff, I don't remember really ever making real good like connections with everybody. I don't remember asking lots of people lots of different questions. Like I started to do that, and I started to get more comfortable with having conversations that would be difficult for somebody who doesn't have those kind of conversations.
Now, speaking of conversation questions, I gotta ask, what's more difficult, to get the audience into pro wrestling or stand up comedy?
It's so different. It's so the same, and it's so different. Because like in the ring and doing, you know, wrestling, it's like I know that I'm good at it. I know that like I could do a bad job and still do better than most people on the show.
Right.
That's like a confidence I already have. In comedy, it's I'm gonna go up there in front of a bunch of people who don't know who I am and don't have an like and like try to get them to like rage against the first impression they've made just from my appearance.
Right.
And like try to relate in some way, like, and try to have relatable premises that like everybody can understand and relate to, and at the same time still make them laugh. And if they don't laugh, that's such a hit on my ego. It's like, oh, they don't like me. When I'm wrestling and I'm in the ring, I'm playing a character.
Right.
When I'm on stage, I'm me
You're
telling
being
jokes, and
Right.
and they're rejecting it. I'd rather get booed in the ring, like, for sure. Like, that's what I'm after. I'm after
Right.
you not liking me. I'd rather you not like me. And in comedy, I can't not want them to like me. I'm so desperate for them to like me. It almost makes my butthole sweat every single time.
So how do you handle it? So I'm sure just like with wrestling, I'm sure stand-up comedy is the same. There are towns you go to, or there's stages you go to, and you know the crowd is just wet for you. But what happens? What do you do when you get out there and you can just, man, this is not going to be the night? How do you deal with that?
I remember I've gotten off stage probably more times than not and been like, I'm never doing this again. This sucks. I'm never doing this again. This sucks.
Yeah.
And then I have to go, well, maybe it was just that day. Maybe
Right.
it was just an off night. Maybe I got to prepare more next time or something. Like, bombing sucks, dude. but for sure, like, back to the lesson I was saying. It's like, when the stakes are low, the consequences aren't as high for a bomb.
Right.
When people aren't like paying lots of money to come see you, or
Right.
like you're not filling up theaters or clubs, and like they don't know who you are. So like I would way prefer to play to a club of people who all knew who I was, but like I haven't created that draw.
Atmosphere. Yeah.
Like I haven't become that draw. And
Now, does it now? Once again, I have no idea how stand-up works behind the scenes, but do you work the same clubs over and over again so you build up a rapport with the audience, kind of like wrestling, or
it's weird. It's
okay?
It's it really kind of depends on what the scene is like and who's in it, because
Okay.
it's political sometimes. Like,
Really?
some parts like in center city, it's like real political. Some people are like only put their friends up, just like in wrestling. Like, some people only get spot. Like, if I go to a club to do an open mic, sometimes it's like in the city, like I won't get on stage till like 1:30 in the morning. And like by that point, everyone has already left.
Right.
So I just kind of suss out what's really worth my time, because it's like I not only do I have to get there, I gotta like find parking, and I gotta
right.
And especially with like the gas and everything crazy is what it is right now. I prefer to do stuff that I've been asked to do, and I'm getting paid to be there. But not some phenomenal amount, but
Right. No, you want to be at least appreciated for your time and your effort. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally get that. There's one thing with doing things for free, which is nice. Charity jobs are great. They make you feel good at the end of the day, but it doesn't keep the lights on.
You get your reps in.
Right.
Bro, I went and got stage time. I was so desperate for stage time that I went like directly after one of my friends' funerals to
wow.
to go do a set. I was like
How in the
still
fuck?
in a suit, and
Wow.
I was like, "Oh man, I'm desperate." So,
But
I
even
don't know
having that
how this-
mindset of being at a funeral and going, I'm going to tell some jokes. Holy shit, Corey. That's brutal, man. That is some that is some loyalty there.
so I've been doing this bit. I had a I worked at this job where this young girl, she was just a couple years younger than me, but she was like, she like lit up the room. Like she was a very special girl, and I had like this small crush on this girl. And then the one day she came in and she told everybody that she had just put her 2 weeks notice in, and then she came in the next day and she had bleached her hair, and blonde was not for her.
Right.
Like she had this like natural, she was like Hungarian or something. She had this beautiful natural dark hair.
Yeah, yeah.
And then she bleached it. And I was like, oh, it doesn't fit. My crush for her is kind of gone now. And and then like the day after that, they were like, oh yeah, you know that girl who works here? She just put her 2 weeks notice in, Victoria. Yeah, she got killed. She got killed this week.
Jesus.
Someone had like, she was in the crossfire of some gun violence in the city.
Right, right.
And she was at some party that got shot up or something. And they were like, okay, so we're gonna go to her funeral next week when that happens.
Right.
And when we got to the funeral, she was super young, and the line went all the way out the building at this church. Yeah. And by the time we got in the line, I could finally see her, and I had forgotten about the blonde, and I was like, too much dye.
Oh. Wow. Nice. Dad jokes will always rule. Always.
And then like about a week later, I was scrolling through Tinder and I saw her profile, and I was going to screenshot it, and I was like, she's been shot enough.
That's good, man. That's good.
But
yeah, you had me going there. Like, you're telling the story, and I'm like, oh shit, where's he going? It's really bad. Oh, you caught me off guard. Very good, man. Nice.
Cool, man. I like a good misdirect sometimes. Yes. Like the problem I think sometimes with comedy is like you can become such a fan of it that you'll know where a joke's going,
right?
Like when it starts,
right?
And sometimes I like to make sure it's like a full misdirect. Like you have no idea where that's coming from.
Oh like, yeah, no, I'm really thinking like, oh yeah, Hungarian girl, okay, Victoria, got it. Blonde hair, okay, I can see that. Bad dyes, I gotcha.
I worked at this job a couple of years ago where I got my older brother hired at the job, and they put it in like the email list that they had just hired him. Yeah. And then everybody in the lunchroom kept coming up to me and they're like, that guy has the same last name as you. That's your brother? Is that your brother? Is that your brother? And I was like, yes, it's my brother. Like, what's he like? What's he like? What's he like? What's he like? And I was like, you think I'm funny. Whether you meet my brother, he thinks I'm hilarious.
That's right. That's great.
That's a classic misdirect.
Yes. Oh.
So you've been on tons of people's podcasts, or not tons, but I mean, you've been on a good amount of other people's podcasts and have been interviewed a few times here and there.
Sure.
Out of all those podcasts that you've been on, what's the one question that you've not been asked that you'd wish you had been asked?
Well, shit, I don't know, honestly. What is the one question I wish that other podcasters had asked me? I honestly don't know. I really don't. Maybe about music. That's one thing that, all the years of talking wrestling, and like you even said, we talk about Walking Dead, we talk about TV, we talk about other sports, we talk about the most random shit sometimes. Geez, during the whole Trump stuff, I don't think anybody couldn't stop talking about politics. It's like, we're not even the show that does politics, and we were talking about politics. So yeah, there's never really been a topic that was off the table, but yeah, I enjoy the hell out of music. I love 90s, 2000s, everything from industrial to different kinds of metal, doom metal, Hypocrisy, Metallica, even early Metallica. I'm a Black Album naysayer. So when the Black Album came out, I stopped enjoying Metallica. I'm one of those. I'm like a Cliff Burton and Dave Mustaine fan too. So you know, um, well, yeah, no, different kinds of like everything from Bajas to Depeche Mode, like just real eclectic, weird tastes in music. I mean, a lot of that's mainstream, but then I listen to like a lot of just random Cleopatra label stuff, bands that played in front of 20 people and then never again, like Brown Tape for a Blue Girl. Like nobody even knows what the fuck that is in 2022. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of bands like that too, don't you, Corey? Is there like a lot?
Probably, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
like,
I'm into a lot of stuff that nobody would think I was ever into, but like a lot of my like deep cuts stuff that I'm into that like people would never guess is stuff that like my mom listened to in the 90s. like
okay,
like like all old country, like 90s country music was like it's my jam. I could pop. I go over to my mom's house and her have a Spotify playlist on and me like know every one of the songs.
nice, nice. Yeah,
Or
see, that's something that see those. It's little things like that because I don't know how deep you get into music, but man, when I was younger, I there was nothing I would do in my life that I didn't have a Sony Walkman, a cassette player or a little transistor radio next
are
to
you
me
a
at all
musician?
times.
Do you play anything?
No, not anymore. I used to have a Korg back in the day, and I'd play with the synthesizer and stuff. And
Mm.
my uncle had an organ, and I used to love doing the Phantom of the Opera bit, But officially, no. I played by ear, and synthesizers are pretty much programmable. So you program in certain sounds, then you just start fiddling with that. But nah, nothing official. Just played around. Never played with guitars or nothing like that though either. Or
My girlfriend's in a band.
oh yeah,
My girlfriend's she's an amazing singer. She was on the Netflix show Sing On, like the singing competition on Netflix,
okay,
hosted
wow,
by Titus Burgess,
damn,
episode 2. But she's in a band now called the Red Hots, and she's a pretty talented singer. Alyssa Marie is what she goes by.
wow,
Uh,
very cool.
but
What
yes,
does she sing? What is it? What kind of music does she do?
it's a lot of like right now it's in the band she does covers and stuff,
Okay,
but it's a lot of like pop stuff and a lot of
okay, okay,
like kind of like top 40 stuff.
all right.
A real
No, that's cool as hell, man. I mean, to
it,
be able
it
to have the vocal chops to do that is,
it gets people moving.
yeah,
Like for sure, it seems like she's got this energy that gets everybody moving at the shows,
good.
and that's really I think probably the venue's favorite stuff. Like when people ask for them to have that band back, and it's really cool. And she's only been, I mean, the band only started January or something. Like
Oh
they haven't
shit!
even been around for a very long time.
Wow, very good.
So
What about you? Do you play?
no, no, no. Everybody thinks that I play something, but I don't.
Did you
I'm
ever
not.
fiddle?
I mean, I played this drum,
Ah, that's true.
but I don't. I don't. I nowadays, dude. I've been bringing the drum with me to the ring. Um, I because the way I look at it with and I just talked about this on the last show. So, but the way I look at the drum and why I use it for the beginning of the show is as far for it's a symbol for consistency. It's a symbol for I'm going to continue to beat my drum the way I beat it.
I got you.
And when I take it to the ring with me and I hit the drum I got my theme song custom made and composed by Greg Massey, and it's with drums like this, and it's part of me feeling and knowing that this is so much more sacred than like there's got such a history of warriors
Yeah. Oh yeah.
kept inside these ropes, and and paying respect to those warriors. And this is so ceremonial, like what we're doing, the emotions that we're pulling up out of people. That stuff is all like we're creating memories for these people, even if it's stuff that I do and then I never remember that I did it. This is going to be something that lives with somebody who's never been to a wrestling show before, and that's kind of the way I would look at a lot of this stuff. Because this is another thing that makes me memorable to those people. Because a good amount of the people that I just imagine at wrestling shows, a good amount of the people have probably never been to live wrestling before,
Right.
or probably some of them already have their preconceived ideas of what it's going to be like, and the, this is something that brings them out of that. And I want to make sure that every show I'm on, and this is something I'll say to any like young talent that's in a match with me or on a card with me, I always take them over to where the sheet is, the sheet that says like what all the matches are.
Yeah.
And I'll say, look at what's before us, look at what's after us. Let's give them something they're not going to see before or after us. Let's give them something different than anything else they'll see on the show. And I think that's a part of my stuff in the ring, the stuff that I do.
It's an identity, is what it sounds like. It's like,
yeah,
it's more than just a symbol. It's an identity to you.
yeah. It's like I feel like what I've got left. I mean, dude, I've been taking bumps for 23 years. That's a hell of a long time.
Long time.
And I maybe have never been as good as I am right now. And I want to pass some of that along. Like, I guess it's kind of my duty. Not to say that like the wrestling business has never afforded me a comfortable living. I've always worked some Joe job. As Wayne Campbell would say, I got a collection of hairnets and name tags.
No shit. Yeah.
Here's one right here.
There you go.
But a question I wanted to ask you that jumped into my head was when you watch things that are centered around Chicago, do you have like some sort of like Chicago pride for those things? Does that sort of resonate with you?
I used to.
Like Wayne's World. Would that be like, oh, that's what's that?
Yeah, no, because there's a scene. That's a great example. There's a scene where they literally drive by my house in the Wayne's World movie. And every time I see them go by the actual highway with the giant lips, that was literally right next to where I lived in Chicago with the Magnificent Kiss. So it was like one of those montage scenes, but it's like, oh, that's where I'm at, right there. That's cool.
Like, like we kind of have that here. And I mean, as far as like, Rocky, of course, and then like Invincible and any like Philly pride stuff. And then especially like for me being a young kid, being a wrestling fan, like ECW was here.
Right.
Like, as far as like the kind of like Philly pride stuff that like I'm.
You guys had a lot of, I mean, Philly is the home of wrestling. I mean, it really is the Mecca in the U.S. Once upon a time, it was, the Sportatorium in Texas. And like, I mean, there's been different places for it. Chicago had the AWA there. But I mean, it evolves. Time changes, everything. But Philly absolutely was that map for a very long time. So, it still is in a lot of ways. It really is. Because Chicago, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's still some promotions around here. I loved WCPW back in the day. I watched even back when Christopher Daniels was still wearing green trunks and had hair, so they used to show it when I was younger. They would show Windy City Pro Wrestling, and then they would put on like some random old school Texas wrestling and like UWF. And this was all on like the free cable network. So nobody was getting any money for this. It was just randomly on like Wednesdays and Fridays. And you'd sit there and watch these guys in the gym, and it was awesome. It was fucking awesome because it was local,
The syndicated like public access channel
Yes.
that ECW used to come on in Philly, that Channel 48 WGTW, serving Burlington and Trenton or whatever, serving Burlington and Philadelphia. Like that was their spot.
Yeah.
But then like later on, CZW went to be on that same network, and I would see myself on this TV on
Nice.
the channel that I used to watch ECW on. It was such a mark out moment, but at the same time, you weren't allowed to be a mark. You weren't, and that was such a weird thing that just kind of faded away.
Yeah.
Like, bro, I wore a Bret Hart shirt to a wrestling show recently,
Yeah.
and nobody was like, "Hey, you mark." Like, I feel like in the early 2000s, people would have been like, "Yo, quit fucking marking out." Like, you weren't allowed to be a mark back then. Was
it so let me ask you about that, because I mean, I've done years and years worth of criticizing different aspects of wrestling, just coming from the fan basis, but is it because it was seen as a sign of weakness, or was it something else?
It's a direct when you're one of the boys, you're not talking about the other boys, because if you're talking about the other boys, you belong on the other side of the barricade. That was the psychology behind it. That was what was drilled in. You don't belong as one of the guys.
But you guys were all inspired by other boys. Right.
Like those were the reasons we're in the ring. But we can't talk about the product anymore. Like, and I think that's still the idea. Like, even sometimes, like if I'll tweet about like Raw or AEW or something like that, like I think sometimes you'll read a random comment that'll be like, "Hey, you just seem like you're another one of the fans. Like, you don't seem like you're somebody who's in the business." And then sometimes if you talk about it and you talk in an unflattering way, sometimes that'll get back to one of those boys, and they're like, "Oh, I can't believe one of the boys. So one of the boys is shit talking me." And it's like, I don't think it's that serious, bro.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think that criticism is anywhere near as destructive. And I don't even mean as far as wrestlers among wrestlers, but I mean, even from the fans, if you go back, like you were even bringing up those CZW boards, vicious, fucking vicious. I mean, people would talk shit about families. They talk shit about their girlfriend.
Dude, they used to shit on me for, I like when I first started, I would wear a shirt, but I was a young kid and I was in shape or whatever. But they would be like, "Why does he even bother wearing a shirt? What's wrong with him?" And then they shit all over me.
Right.
Like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. You're just like, dude, I just woke up.
I thought you guys were fans of this stuff. Why are you like? But of course, I was wearing a shirt because I was an insecure kid.
Right.
Like,
I had those. Now, Corey, if somebody sat there and went on social media and said, "Why in the fuck is Corey wearing a shirt?" People would defend you and go, "Why are you body shaming Corey?
Right.
Why are you? What's the matter with you? You hate fat people? You hate skinny people? What's wrong with you?" Like, there is so much outrage now in defense against bullying that it's almost become bullying, like counterculture bullying, as opposed to what it used to be. Because everybody's trying to be so safe. Like, don't say anything that's going to rile anybody up. Keep the status quo.
It's really, there's some effort behind trying to bubble wrap the world, and inside of that, you're trying to rewrite history.
Yeah.
And I think that the old saying, like, the history books are written by the winners.
Yeah.
And the losers don't want to accept that.
No shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're all kind of losers sometimes, and that's fine. It's fine to kind of be a loser sometimes. If you win all the time, you probably suck as a person. There's probably something wrong with you. Like, you don't know how to lose if you win all the time. Like, learn how to lose.
Losing builds character. It really does. And I know it sounds so corny to say, but you understand how you handle things better when you're at your worst. You understand what you can take, you understand how you can take it, and you understand how to climb out of it. You know?
This
Yeah,
this
man.
is
I think every single person that ever watches this and every person that we've known has had a moment in their lives where they didn't know which way it was up. I think that's what establishes us as human beings, is just that strength to kind of fucking move forward, whether it's, somebody yelling in your ear telling you get the fuck out there, or it's you finally picking yourself up and going, what the fuck am I doing to myself? You know?
it's it's strange. Like I talk about this all the time on here, and I think
Oh, I
maybe
love philosophical talk, dude. Oh,
you'll appreciate this. From a very young age, and probably the age that you probably saw me was back then. I got inside of what I call the spoiler business, like checking those run sheets, and
mhm.
I brought up the run sheets now like 3 times. So
Yes.
sure, I'll bring it up again. But seeing the names in all the matches, and then like they'd write out like they'd write out like where they wanted it to go, like what story they wanted to tell in it, and then they'd underline who was over, like so I'd have a spoiler of what was happening before it ever happened, but it wouldn't stop me from still wanting to watch it.
Right.
So whenever there's any kind of spoilers or anything at all now, when it comes to uh, a match that happened or a result that happened, like I kind of already know where it's heading anyway. Like
Yeah.
I if when I watch wrestling, I kind of watch it differently now. I watch it way differently now, like where I'll understand where it's headed. I'm kind of Wade and Gretzkying the whole business, the whole match. Not saying Wayne Gretzkying it because I'm the great one.
Does it ruin your appreciation of it as a fan?
Not really. No. I mean, I think I appreciate it
More?
sometimes a little bit more
Okay.
than I think some, and it's weird. I had like a weird discussion with one of my friends recently about, he's like, oh, this guy's been a fan of since the 70s and the territory days. Like, you think you have a more of an authority on your fandom of wrestling? And I'm like, I have a perspective that guy doesn't have. Like,
Right. Oh, yeah,
sure
totally.
he can have loved it since the 70s and the territory
It's
days,
a
but he's never touched a rope. He's never stepped in a ring. He does a good amount of the lessons that I think I learned uh, through getting out. Like I think me leaving CZW like in 2004, probably I got my best education outside of there. Like getting out from being a student and like being looked at like I'm a student, and like getting out there and just doing it for a good amount of years. I was just like brought into companies just to put over ticket sellers,
yeah.
but like that gave me experience. That like taught me how to tell the story the way I want to control the narrative, if you will. but but for sure, I mean, I I learned that most of the people who are watching you have never experienced this. Have don't know what it's like to even touch a ring. So like
I
when
still think that's a really weird flex that somebody would even a fan from the 70s would sit there and tell a wrestler that, and somebody that's been in the business, maybe not even a wrestler, maybe even a ref or a guy that's been ring announcing for 20 years, it doesn't matter,
Mhm.
tell somebody on that level that they
Oh, it
have.
wasn't that it wasn't that guy. It was my friend just being an asshole.
Oh, okay, because I'm like geez, man, that's just a level of ego that sometimes fans, and look, and I know podcasters get it too, because sometimes a lot of us podcasters, we talk a big game, and sometimes we need to be shut the fuck down, and I'm lucky to be surrounded by a guy who can shut me the fuck down when I say something stupid. And
Yeah.
I understand that, and that's another thing too, is being willing to accept you're wrong. I think that's just a good human trick, let alone podcaster. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that think just because they get behind a microphone they have more value to their opinions than people that are actually in the business. You know, dude, it's kind of like respecting your elders. It's like respecting the people in the profession. If somebody in the profession told me, "No, Mish, you're wrong. Shut the fuck up," I'm going to shut the fuck up. I'm going to be like, "Okay, well, can you at least tell me why?" You know, like it's a questionnaire kind of thing, as opposed to a, "Well, no, I don't think so because I've been." There's people out there like that, though, Corey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that kind of attitude, when I was younger, for sure, I would have been mad about. But now I don't get mad about that kind of stuff because, like, I don't have time to try to change somebody's mind about it. So I'll just accept it and say, I need me to be me, and I need you to be you. And if you're the type of person who feels the way you are, like, I need that to challenge me.
Man,
Like,
you are a good dude to be able to take that on the chin like that. I'm serious. It's no bullshit. Total respect. Because
years ago, I was wrestling a show at the Hamburg Fieldhouse. And I can't believe this is still in my brain. I was wrestling a show at the Hamburg Fieldhouse, and this was my second show for this company. And the guy who was doing commentary was like, he came up to me and he was like, "Oh, are you gonna what move are you gonna finish the match with? Hopefully it's not the same move from last time because that one sucked." And I was like, "Bro, that's my fucking finish, bro." I was like, one more time, I'm gonna ask you to never fucking talk to me again. 1, 2, you not only owe me a big apology, but you owe me the respect of never fucking walking in a wrestling building ever again. Like, I've been doing this move and finishing matches with this move for like a decade, and it's over everywhere. So eat shit, die slow, motherfucker.
Good for you, man. Seriously. People like that, they need to be put in check sometimes. I think everybody needs to be put in check at some point, or else you don't know your privilege. But in situations like that, it was your right. It was absolutely your right.
I was like, I'm well within my rights to fucking hurt you, dude. like if this was a different time, and I say this to people in shows all the time,
right?
If this was a time where kayfabe still existed the way it did back in the day, I would be obligated to fucking hurt you,
right?
To teach you a lesson.
But Dr. Death Steve Williams, absolutely. Go back to the head, bouncing fucking reporters' heads off the wall. You know, like,
yeah.
Does this feel fake? You know, like,
there's a phrase that I've been using, and I want to see if you'd like to borrow it, because it's something I commonly use. I use it pretty often, and I'd like it to be a thing that people actually use pretty often. So, like, you know what a worked shoot is, right?
Yeah.
So, like, kind of like everything is in that like worked shoot area. Mm-hmm. Inside of that, because like you're tweeting stuff that's like about your personal life, as well as like tweeting stuff that's in gimmick.
Right.
I call that stuff gray fabe, because it's inside of that gray area where it's like you're not really shoot you and you're not really work you. So this is everything on this show, everything on this feed is all gray fabe. Right. So it's like it's kind of shoot, kind of work, and you can't really tell the difference. Like that's kind of what that MJF promo recently was. It was gray fade. He gray fade the shit out of that promo.
He really does have financial concerns. Right. At the same time, at the end of the day, he's still trying to make his character work. So I like that. Gray fade was pretty good, man. You know what you do with that? You get one of those pro wrestling tees and you put it in a darker gray on a lighter gray shirt in text. So you have to look at it and then be like maybe even if, do you know what I'm saying? Like, so you get like either a light gray, or I would even say you go with a lighter gray on a darker gray shirt. Gray fade. That's not bad, man. That's good, Corey.
Do you have a pro wrestling tees store?
Yeah, we got one for Wrestling Soup. Got a bunch up. I mean, let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think it's just Wrestling Soup at prowrestlingtees.com/wrestling soup.
Well,
But yeah,
well, you go ahead and design a gray Fabe shirt and put it up on your store, and I'll put it up on my store also. I have a pro wrestling tees.
put it up on your store. It's your phrase, sir.
Well, you came up with the idea for the
Wow.
shirt. That's why I'm saying.
You put it up, man. Serious. Why not? I like that phrase. I think that's clever as fuck. I think
The lines have
people would
become
get
so
it right
blurred.
away. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, though, is so social media. Now shit. You've been here pre and post social media. You've been wrestling since MySpace was around.
Dude, when I first started wrestling,
Yeah.
my first theme song was let me start by saying that the way I found my first pro wrestling school was through an ad in the newspaper.
Wow.
And my first theme song was on a cassette tape.
Nice.
That's a fucking dying breed. If you ever heard of a dying breed in wrestling, this guy.
No, that's awesome though, man. Shit. People don't even know what the fuck cassette tapes and papers are anymore. You know?
Newspapers and cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Oh, back in my day.
There it is. There it is.
What were you going to ask about the internet?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, with the way wrestling fans have been pre and post social media per se, and with the way that wrestler accounts have been, because see, I remember a lot of wrestler accounts back during the MySpace days, and it was simple. It was like more along the lines of, here's how to contact me for bookings and stuff like that. Here is where I'll be in the next few weeks, etc. Like, it was more of an informational page, which is funny because MySpace was so wacky, and kids don't even remember this. It was so wacky. You had your top 9 friends lists, and you had like all the glittery shit everywhere,
all the gifs and the music player.
Yep. Like, it was, you'd go there, every single page was a party page. Nobody had a boring MySpace page. You'd have video game scores up there and stuff like that. Like, it was just wild.
I had Ash from Evil Dead gifts on my MySpace page, and Papa Roach songs.
Nice. Yeah. And it's like, then you look at Facebook, and Facebook is bland as shit.
Yeah.
They only kept taking away more stuff. But as far as the way people react on social media, do you wish it was more like the days where it was MySpace, where social media was a little bit more, I don't know, personal?
Well, the thing is, I think back to the topic of inclusion. Yeah. For sure, inclusion is important, and representation is very, very important. I really, truly believe that from the bottom of my soul. I truly believe that shit is super important, and everybody deserves to feel heard, and everybody deserves to feel seen, and everybody deserves unconditional love, for sure. But when it comes to, I think there was an era in wrestling where you weren't anybody. When you came into it, wrestling was the thing that gave you a platform that made you known by people.
Yeah.
And after MySpace came along and after Facebook came along, everybody felt like they were already famous because people could see them on Facebook. Like the level of arrogance with younger people coming into wrestling, like they already had a voice that people were paying attention to.
Yeah.
And it kind of like watered down the amount of humility that people would have.
Wow.
Because you were, I remember, dude, my first day I met Eddie Valentine, and I've told the story many times, and I was just texting with him just a couple minutes ago. But nice. The first time I got in the ring with him, we were doing 4 corners, like where you just kind of do everything on the fly. You're just kind of figuring out on the fly. And I spaced for like a second, and he hit me with a forearm like stiff, and knocked me loopy on the ground. And he said, "Don't ever look at me like you don't know what you're doing."
Wow.
And and I did that in a promo. I had wrestled him like in December, and in a promo I said you told me first day, uh, if you look at me with a face like you don't belong here, then you don't. Right
Right.
now you're looking at me, and I know I belong here, but I know you don't. And that was like it was a neat full circle. It's it's I've been so lucky to have been taught be the right be the funny thing is like I'm always like, oh well maybe I get more spots if I'm the right person, the right place at the right time, and sometimes that just doesn't happen for people the way it does. But dude, I'm so grateful for the person I was and the places I've been in the times I've been that person, that place.
Yeah.
Like for me to be the kid that was like molded by these male figures who just
Right.
really who really like toughened me up and taught me how to be a man. I give tons of credit to Eddie Valentine and John Dahmer, but like I also have to give a ton of that credit to my tag partner Matt Bomboy. He really helped me out. Uh, but that's also probably a tag team you probably never heard of. Me and him were a team like in 2008, 9, 10, like probably till like 2011 maybe.
Yeah. Wow.
And like he just maybe if you maybe have seen him on like Chikara. He was like in Chikara back in the day.
Okay.
But we will work. We constantly work for promotions that no one's ever heard of, and we're very on the fringe of like mainstream, and that's kind of fine. Like maybe
That's
it's
authentic. I mean,
yeah, it's part of that. Like it's part of that part of me saying like when the stakes are low, I'd rather mess up when the stakes are low instead of mess up when the stakes are really high. And
right,
at this
right.
point, I think that I have a value inside of the business where I can teach people how to be over so that they can go and be over in the bigger companies and teach them how to tell stories and and point out like little things that are like they're so minute, but they're a thing that will be an important part of every single time you're at another event. Like I remember, I don't know. Do you know Chuck Payne?
No.
He works for Tremont's company.
Okay.
He was trained by Mike Keener, the ECW referee Mike Keener.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I remember his first day he was training. The first day, I'm sorry, not the first day he was training. The first time he had a match, the first show where he had a match, and he was having such a hard time remembering spots. And I remember being like, think about your favorite song. Think about your favorite song and how you memorize it. And then you're like, oh, when this part hits, you know the next verse is starting this way. Look at a wrestling match that way. And he was like, you might have just changed the whole thing for me.
So you turn it into like word association.
Kind of like if you
when people want to remember somebody's name, like that's the whole thing. Like if they look at you and they'd say Corey Castle, how am I going to remember? Oh, CK like Calvin Klein. Okay, so I'll remember CK as Corey Castle. Like it's this weird connection, and then they look at you and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. Castle, East Coast, like Kevin Castle. And that's kind of how you teach wrestling then. How to remember moves and spots.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes I'll wait for opportunities to give feedback.
Okay.
But I'm not going to automatically give you unsolicited feedback.
Okay.
Right? Like so
is that a bad thing too?
Unsolicited feedback?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it could give you it could give you issues with yourself. Like I think if you're brand new and somebody gives you unsolicited feedback, you can be like, well, I suck and I'm never going to get good.
Well, there's constructive ways to do it, though.
Right. There is. But I mean, I'm kind of a jerk. Sometimes when it comes to like feedback.
Joey says you're a really nice guy, so I doubt that there, Corey.
Well, like my friend Gotti, he brought me to a show with him, and the students from Keikoa's school worked, and I had just been training with them at the work rate school like weeks before that, and one of the students came in the back, and I was like, bro, I don't know how to tell you this, but like, you're the most blown up I've ever seen anyone ever in my life. and Gotti brings that up every single time. And Killian McMurphy came in the back, and he was like, how was our match? What would make it better? Like he came up to me asking me, right. And I was like, what would make it better would probably be better opponents, because those guys suck. So those little mean jerk Corey Castle angry vet moves are stuff that Gotti never lets me forget about.
Yeah, but people like they gotta understand you're saying that out of love almost, right? I mean, it's not like you don't harbor any ill will towards these people. It's just
right.
It's that tough love stuff that doesn't really exist so much anymore.
I just want to help.
Right. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to hurt you, baby.
I started doing this line in promos now, where I'm like, you can be a better version of yourself. All you have to do is be more like me. Nice. Say that in all my promos now, but I kind of mean it. But I don't mean it like just be like me, but I mean like be open to the idea of there can be stuff you change about yourself. There could be stuff you tweak about what you're never fully set. You're never fully done. Like I'll change my style up every once in a while. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to make sure in this match I hit none of my big finishers. I hit none of my big signature moves, because like, like I'll just to switch it up. I'll just do stuff I've never done before, just to see what it's like.
Let me ask you a question. Kind of on topic, kind of a little bit off. So with the way that the media has changed from like when we were talking about the MySpace days, and its reflection of like how podcasters and fans look at wrestling, do you think that overall the media has been unfairly negative more now, or do you think it's a lot more inclusive now than it used to be? As far as wrestling goes, as far as the media, like I said, like wrestling podcasters and stuff like that, looking on the product.
It seems a little less filtered. It seems a little harsher. You know what I mean? And there's no shame in being harsh for some people. But it's sometimes I think a good amount of people get real nervous when they're in front of a camera, in front of a mic. If they have a mic in front of them, they get super nervous. Dude, that used to be me. Do you know Rick Feinberg?
Ooh, name sounds familiar.
He used to do like the Rob Weinstein gay gimmick in early 2000s. That's Rick. That's Rick Connor. Yeah. He's my best friend. That's my best friend. That's the guy. That's the guy. That's the guy who gave me this.
Awesome.
Yeah. But
that's cool, man.
I just what the hell was I bringing him up? What were we just talking about? Oh, him and I used to do comedy sketches together. We used to do sketch comedy, and we would film that stuff. And I remember before every sketch, I was nervous as shit. When the camera was on me, I was always nervous. Yeah. I was always sweaty, and I was always nervous. And I don't know if that didn't really. I don't think that really showed through in my performance, but I remember feeling it. I remember being like chills.
Yeah.
Kind of like the same nerves you get before a match or something. But I don't have that anymore.
But did people say negative things to you about that, or
no? It was just something I noticed. That like I feel like the amount of nerves people are desensitized to feeling those nerves anymore, because they've lived a life under a microscope or in front of a camera or in front of a microphone. They've had front-facing cameras on their phone their whole lives,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
not something.
Yeah,
That's
we
not
know.
something I would have ever even imagined as a kid.
Man, it was this kind of funny because I just got the little woman a new Motorola phone, one of the new G Powers or G Powered 2022s or whatever, because that's what she likes. But it was her first time ever actually using her phone to watch television. She never watched apps or anything else. So I'm like installing HBO on her phone and Sling and everything else like that. And it's just mind blowing because I know we were talking about technology a little bit, earlier and stuff like that. But it's mind blowing to think that I could sit there and watch, WWE or AEW right off my phone while I'm at work, while I'm, sitting in a parking lot somewhere.
Well,
It's just it's wild how far technology has come.
I just heard you talking about that.
Yeah.
You were saying something like you didn't want to spend all this money on an iPhone or something like.
Right. Right.
Was that on like today's episode?
No, it's a little while ago, but
Okay,
yeah.
but I was like, yeah, okay, I can see that. That's why, like, when I sent you the podcast to check it out, I sent you the Spotify link because I was like, oh, I can't send him Apple, like,
Right. Right.
because
I
I
still
heard you
use the
talking about.
Apple. I mean, we still have so many people that listen to us through Apple Podcasts, formerly iTunes. Now it's Apple Podcasts. But yeah, no. I mean, as far as platforms go, fuck. I saw our shows on Roku. So they've iHeartRadio, Stitcher. Obviously, we did the Stitcher Awards even back in the day. iTunes, Clear Channel, like all these, Spotify, Amazon. It's wild to think how many different places people actually want to listen to you from, which is just crazy to me. And then B, realizing that there's people in like Uzbekistan listening to Wrestling Soup on a Thursday night. Like,
Yeah, it's funny to watch like the geolocations
yes,
on like your Anchor statistics or Spreaker,
right,
and be like, oh, look, people in India are following. I'm
right.
like, what could be interesting about this to them?
That's got to be cool as shit for you too. Just getting random comments from people halfway across the globe that you've never even been to their country going, man, I loved your match. Like.
Well, I mean, I feel like when I debuted in CZW, and it was it was a well-known independent at that time. I became very Googleable at a very young age,
Nice.
and I did not expect that. I didn't expect, but seeing my name and results in different languages and different countries' websites and stuff was really really cool to me. Like, but I'm not sure. I think
Do
when
you
I was
Google yourself still, Corey, or no?
occasionally, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I think this sounds arrogant, but it's really truly not. This is humble as possible. But I look at my life like if I wasn't me, I'd wish I was.
Oh shit, I like that.
And if I wasn't me, I'd want to listen to my podcast. If I wasn't me, I'd want to watch my comedy, and I'd want to watch my matches. Like, I'd want my matches to be the type of matches that I'd want to see.
Yeah.
That's why I structure them in the way that I do. That's why that's why I keep things
Oh, it's cool as hell, man.
authentic, as far as like I want to make sure that if that's I don't want people to be me, but I want other people to live the type of life where if they weren't them, they wish they were.
Right. Yeah, because you want people to love themselves, because that's
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the hardest things for people to do in this day and age, is be able to respect themselves and look in the mirror without wincing. Believe me, I know. I do it. I ain't perfect. I have a lot of flaws, and every time I look in that mirror, I see those flaws. It's not just
Why?
physical,
Why?
because we're people. And I mean, if you want to get
that's
into
very general.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, in the symbolic sense of it, it's because a lot of people, myself included, probably don't forgive everything that we've done to ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I'm a heavy guy now. 15 years ago, I wasn't. 15 years ago, I was sinewy and much skinnier. I think I was at my best, I was 210 at 6'6.5". So I'm 6'6" now. I was 210, but it was a good mix. I wasn't a fat dude at all. You know, I could see my rib cage at 210. Um, Now I'm a big dude, and that's because of not food, but a lack of motion. And now I'm getting better at it. Actually, when I went out to DC and stuff like that, I was actually kind of happy to see everybody comment saying, "Oh, you've lost a bunch of weight." It's like, yeah, I've been cutting out all the carbs, been cutting out all the shit, been making stages. But when you look at yourself in the mirror, all I see, and I'm sure other people that have like weight issues too, see the abuse that they've done to themselves to make them this.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
I have body issues myself. Body dysmorphia is real hard. People commenting on my body when I'm a teenager. Uh,
Oh yeah.
it's not something that has ever gone away.
You were in the limelight from 15. I mean, Jesus Christ.
So
You're in a whole different world, man. You've been dealing with
I
it.
fully feel that body dysmorphia, and
Yeah,
I feel that stuff when I look in the mirror now, and I go, well, I've been working this job from home.
yeah,
I've been working this job from home, so I'm so not motivated to get up and go work out.
right.
When like for sure, I worked at a gym before this. I was in the gym every day. I was getting paid to work out.
Yeah,
Like, and now I'm this unmotivated blob, and I feel this shame, and I'll shake my belly when the mirror.
right,
Like,
right.
it's something I do, but it doesn't make me feel any different about who I am. It's
Well,
it's
do you think that's a twofold thing? Do you think the reason it doesn't change the other aspects of how you view yourself is because you've been dealing with that shit and people's opinions of you since you were 15 publicly like that? Because that's a life, man. That is a whole fucking life right there.
no, I don't think that has much to do with it as
Okay.
much as I think sometimes it'll be like, oh well, what bookings do I have coming up? Like I think sometimes it'll be like, oh, do I have to be in tights again soon? Like, and that kind of like I'm Dennis Stamp on the trampoline with the weights.
Right. Never know when you have to be ready, sir.
So I I I think, bro, I let's make this less about me for a second,
Okay.
and really dive into who you were 15 years ago.
Sure.
Who you were 15 years ago. You weren't married 15 years ago.
No, no, no,
You weren't as good of a broadcaster 15 years ago.
no.
You didn't have the maturity or perspective that you've got now 15 years ago.
Right.
The 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 amount of time we spend comparing ourselves to not just other people, but to our former versions of ourselves, acting like that somehow was better. Like maybe you looked better or
Right. Right.
aesthetic, optically more pleasing, but like who you are is a result of all the struggles that you've had
Sure.
and all the shit that you've endured and have one more time. I'm gonna do this one more time.
You're
You
not wrong.
you so like that. I I just I kind of if I could give you a challenge, if I could give you a challenge, would you accept that challenge?
Sure. I'm always down, man.
Okay. So when you have a thought, when you have a thought about uh, your body, and you feel some like shame in the mirror, I I I want you to then combat that thought with everything that you're grateful for that you have now, because gratitude attracts more positive things.
Sure.
I, if if for just even for just a little while. And I think sometimes words are really important too. So if you're kinder to yourself in your words that you use,
Yeah.
instead of saying like I'm an idiot or I suck, because you're going to start really truly believing that. And you're
Yeah.
also, if you speak that out loud in front of people who don't really know you, they're going to feel like it's okay for them to say that about you too.
Absolutely.
And it's not.
Right.
So sometimes when I hear like some of my best friends or people that I love the most tell me like some real doubtful stuff about themselves or shame themselves in some way, I'm like, please don't say that about my dear friend. Like, I wouldn't be okay with someone coming up to you and saying, "Hey, Mish, you're a fat piece of shit." I would automatically be like, "Yo, dude, get the fuck out of here."
But see,
Like,
isn't that kind of like, all right? So I mean, not to
so kind
sidetrack
of
the challenge,
stand up for yourself to yourself.
but that's what I'm saying is, people can call me a piece of shit, and it's not going to bother me. It only bothers me because it would be me looking at the mirror myself. Do you know what I'm saying? Like other people's opinions, that's where we were talking about earlier, the way it used to be versus the way it is now. You know, it's not onion skin thin. I mean, now today it's different. Back then, no, you probably heard some horrible shit. You probably read some horrible shit that you couldn't even say today. You know, but
Yeah.
this was like every day. This was every day, multiple times a day, and it wasn't even people being honest. It was just people being derogatory for the sake of being derogatory.
Oh,
That's why I was trying to say it's like you bring up the fact that other people shouldn't call Mish a piece of shit and stuff like that. And I understand where you're going with that because you don't want other people to feel that way about you. But to me, it's not even that. That's not even the issue. And it's never been the issue. It's the way as a person you look at yourself, you know?
One of my best friends, his name's Ash. He's like 5'6".
Yeah.
He's like 5'6", and if there's ever any complaint that anyone has about anything, especially me, he'll be like, "What are you complaining about? You're tall." Can you imagine?
Right.
Him like complaining to him about anything, and him being like, "Dude, you're 6'6". What do you
Right.
what's your issue? I mean, I'm 6 foot. I'm not 6'6". I mean,
Yeah.
that's tall. That's I if I could have chose to be 6'6", I would have chose to be 6'6".
Nice.
So truly, man, I think we spend way too much time comparing ourselves
I'm sorry.
to other people, as well as comparing ourselves to our former versions of ourselves, because like, bro, like that version of you didn't have anything figured out.
Right.
Didn't have everything figured out. Like, you just were somehow, your metabolism was different. Somehow your diet worked for you at the time.
Oh, different job even, dude. I mean,
Foods
my former
changed,
job.
life's changed. Like,
Oh, I totally get it, and I like your advice. I like your challenge. You're dead on about that, Corey. I mean, challenge myself to remember what's changed for the positive since I idolized the way I used to look. I like that. That's fucking clever. I appreciate that.
is that logo? I've been meaning to ask you this. That logo, is that designed after the coon?
No, no, it's an evolution of the logo. The guy who first made this version of the wrestling soup logo was a guy named Jeff Zorno. He's a New York comic book artist who worked for Marvel and DC and IDW. He was known for doing the Godzilla comics for Dark Horse, I believe it was at the time, and yeah, a lot of other stuff too. Like, I mean, he worked in tons of comics, and he was a fan of the show and everything else like that. And he designed that for us, the original one.
Awesome.
The original one that I had, I made that. I stole that. Do you remember the old show, The Soup?
Yeah.
It used to be on Entertainment. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I figured, dude, when I saw that your show was named Wrestling Soup, I was like, oh, just like the E show with, and it was John Henson when it.
Yeah, well, there was Joel McHale.
Joel McHale
like
was,
that,
the I think John Henson was like the early '90s or something.
Yeah, there was a bunch of them too. Oh gosh,
and then there was Web Soup with Chris Hardwick.
Nerd Soup. Yeah, there was Nerd Soup. There was Web Soup. There was A few others too. There was a bunch of soups. There was a bunch of soups
Yeah.
when
When I first saw the name of your show, I was like, that's so perfect. Like, I hope you guys are huge. Like you should be with that name. Like it's such a catch to have found that name.
it was such a weird way the show started to out of the blue, because it started off as a companion show to DT, because
Mhm.
back in 2009 and 2010, I mean, those chat rooms. I don't know if you were ever a fan back then of his shows, but when DT and KC used to do shows during pay-per-views, they would have almost about 10,000 people in their chat room.
Wow. Wow.
That's how
I
crazy
only
it was back
discovered Kevin Castle through you.
then.
Like
Oh, okay.
through being a fan of your guys.
Oh,
I mean, I think
that's cool.
I've come in and out over the years of
Yeah.
being like a pretty religious listener to the podcast. And
Now, how is that viewed among your coworkers? I mean, do wrestlers appreciate podcasts, or is it kind of looked at as like, here's a bunch of assholes talking shit?
I think it really depends on the types of perspectives that you hear from the assholes. Like
Okay.
if it's oh shit. What is, a whale's asshole? Like what hell is? is that a deep callback?
Oh my god. Oh.
But yeah, I think it really depends on if the person has the type of attitude towards the business that's respectful, if they have the type of attitude towards like it's not critical. Like I think with you're not critical in a
He's fucking
negative
blunt,
way.
dude. Yeah, I mean, I know Joe and I have been critical about a lot of things over the years. I mean, but I'd like to believe we've always tried to be fair.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've shot my mouth off a few times where I'm like, I've even gone back and went, you know, if I look at it like this, if you're talking on a free speaking podcast and there isn't something that you say that you don't regret, then you're not being honest with your emotions at the time. It doesn't necessarily have to permanently condemn and damn everything, like what I say goes and there is no, it's never been that. But I think people are emotional creatures, and the good podcasts are the ones that aren't trying to openly hurt people, but at the same time can call out the shit. I don't know. This was about your opinion. I don't want to talk about that. I'm curious about your thoughts on this.
It's the same thing. The same thing. When I said like I'll have like people ask me if I'll watch their matches for them.
Okay.
They'll say, hey, can you watch my match? And or they'll say that to any vet. They'll say, hey, come watch my match. And if I start watching the match and their footwork sloppy and their lockup sucks, I stop watching it.
Okay.
So if I was listening to it for minutes that I couldn't see myself continuing to listen to it, then I would just turn it off. I guess that's the same as any opinion that you would have about any wrestling podcast or any podcast, not just a wrestling podcast. Any show, any TV show, any movie. If it's like I can't what's another like very mean thing I've done is I've had guys ask me to watch their matches, and I will see that their footwork sucks, or I'll see that their lockup sucks, and I'll stop watching it. And then if they ask me about it, I'll be like, nope, missed it. Sorry, I was getting changed or something.
Yeah.
Like, and then I've used this example a few times.
To spare their feelings, though, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, maybe. I don't really. I mean, it's kind of a mean thing, but like very low key, very not blatantly mean. But I'll be like, tell me what happened in the match. Like, go over everything. Tell me every single thing that happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hopefully they can remember enough to tell me what had happened. And I'm like, wow, did that get over? Like, how'd the fans react to that?
Yeah.
And the one time that this happened, I can't the kid's name. I, he's not going to hear this anyway. But he was like, he said something. I said, how did it get over? Like, how did the fans react?
Yeah.
And he said, like, they were really into it. And then I was like, oh. And he was like, that's all that matters, right? And I was like, no, lots of stuff matters. No, so much stuff matters.
Right.
Like there's nuance to it all. You cannot just say, as long as it was over, that's all that matters. The crowd was into it. That's all that matters. No, a lot more people besides just the crowd have to be into it. You've got to be into it. You've got to be into what you're doing. Like, and I feel like that's kind of what I've been watching. And I hesitate to say this because, like, for sure, I'd go work for AEW if they wanted me, but who knows if they'd ever want me. But I'd say, like bashing one of their talents is maybe not the most advised thing. But for sure, I'm going to say, like, when I watch someone like Wheeler Yuta, it feels like he's just going through the motions, and he's got no look on his face. He's not changing his emotions. He's not making it's
too formulaic.
It's like, okay, this is what part happens in a match, and this is the next part that happens in a match, and we called this, so I got to make sure I get there and remember it. And it seems like your psychology about the storytelling is so forgotten because of you knowing that this spot's got to come. Right. Like, even if I'm trying to weird this in a way.
Oh, dude, no, I love this. This is great.
It's like when you picture what a match is going to look like while you're calling it. If you picture what a match is going to look like, you picture the reactions that you're going to get, and then none of it lines up.
Yeah.
None of it lines up the way you wanted to line up. Like, you got to be good enough to fucking act like you've been there before and call an audible. And I think that's another part of me talking about Eddie teaching me that really important lesson when I was a kid, when he said, you're fucking here because you believed that you deserved to be here. To become a pro wrestler, like, you can easily be on the baseball team in your school. You could be on the football team in your school. You can be in the wrestling team in your school. If you want to go to a martial arts school, there's tons of them in strip malls all over the place. Wrestling schools are so much more rare. So what we're doing is we put so much more effort into pursuing our dreams than a good amount of folks do. A good amount of people don't really go through all these channels, especially back in the day. We had to, like, seek out wrestling schools. Wrestling schools weren't as accessible, and not as many people, like, talked about where you could go.
It's wild that you bring that up. There was back in the day, I mean, I don't know, like, I collect tons of wrestling biography books, like tons of them. Any kind of wrestler biography book, I grab it, I read it, it gets added to my collection. I remember on Amazon there was this kid that, I don't know if he had much of a wrestling background. He really didn't, but he was trying to sell a book on how to wrestle without paying for his school. And I remember flagging it. I'm like, dude, that is dangerous as fuck. You're not going to teach people how to get into a ring and teach people how to fucking know how to wrestle through it's like a 38-page book. And I was like, you're going to get in trouble. And I fucking hit him up, and I'm like, what school did you go to? He's like, oh, I didn't go to a school. I'm self-taught. And it's like, oh. I'm like, what the fuck how are you selling a book, dude? You're going to get.
Do you know who else claims to have been self-taught?
Who's that?
John Zandig.
Oh, really? Oh no.
But he was a Monster Factory kid.
Yeah, but that's still learning the Monster Factory. No,
but I mean, he would claim to be self-trained or self-taught because he was. I guess he didn't want to say that he was taught anything by Larry, and
right.
Also, I guess the trainer at the Monster Factory back then was this guy named Ed Atlas, and like a lot of people couldn't stand that guy. So if he was like, "Oh, I was trained by Ed Atlas," no, you probably would have gotten respected less.
I got you.
But at the same time, dude, like
That's scary, man.
a lot of those dudes, and the credit doesn't get given enough. Like Justice Payne, Nick Gage,
Yeah.
like CZW dudes back in that day, trained a lot by Dahmer.
Right. Right.
Dahmer really affected the wrestling business in so many more ways than anyone will even acknowledge. And I'm so grateful to have been somebody who got to sit under the learning tree of that man.
That's awesome, man. But that's what I was saying. There's so many charlatans though that are trying to teach people other ways. Like I said, out of a book, man. Could you imagine your entire craft being summed up into 38 pages on an Amazon pamphlet? Like, I don't know, dude. And I'm only a stupid fan. Like at the end of the day, that's how I. I'm just
Mitch,
a fan, but
that goes back to me going like, people like you need to exist. People like that who would be trying to do something like that need to exist so that like I can continue existing in my way.
right.
And like, dude, so many people make a living off this business, off of wrestling business, way more of a living than I've ever made or will ever make, off of being somebody of questionable morals, or being somebody who had some kind of moral compromise on themselves, or somebody who didn't learn the right way. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, some people who are very, very well-known names.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
They barely got trained.
Right.
Barely got trained, and then we're like, okay, well, it's time to do this incredible stunt that everyone's going to be talking about. It's time to do this deathmatch thing that, like, it's going to light me on fire, and it's going to light my career on fire.
Now, how do people see that as far as behind the scenes? Because is it a jealousy factor at that point, or is it like a good for you for making it ahead of by skipping the line a little bit? How is that kind of seen? Because I mean, to the fans are just there for the show. They want to see the good shows. They want to see stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking at the actual wrestler, like, is there an inherent amount of bad juju? Or is it more along the lines of, hey, show me how you got there?
It's the same exact thing where people go like, hey, tell me how to figure it out. Tell me how to get a viral video. It's the same kind of shit. It's like, I'm not really mad at you for getting the little bit of something you got, but like long term, like that's why I said, like, go back to when you first saw me in the wrestling business, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
All those other people aren't in it anymore.
Right.
None of those people are in it anymore. I mean, rare. Let me try to think about anybody from like 02 CZW who's still in the business.
Jesus Christ, I don't even know, man. Literally nobody, huh?
A good amount of them are dead.
Well,
yeah. And like, dude, that sucks too. Like having to come through the wrestling business and lose a lot of friends really young, knowing also that wrestlers don't have long lifespans. Like they all like die real young, and it's hard for me to go like, hey, I know we're having a good time and you love me and you want to like spend the rest of your life with me, but like, my breed of people don't live very long.
Right. But you didn't. I mean,
but I did. I for sure. I'm not addicted to any kind of painkillers. I've never done that kind of thing. That's something that kills wrestlers. Steroid use, that's something that kills wrestlers. That's not. I mean, but at the same time, steroid abuse is what kills.
Right. Misuse. Is what,
Misuse.
right.
And I it's like sometimes people don't cycle off for a decade, and
Yeah. Well, Jesus.
that's gonna fuck your liver up. It's gonna fuck your heart up. Um, I think that's not just pro wrestling now, because that type of like influencer body fitness
Yeah.
influencer is so big now.
Yeah.
Back then, it would be rare to find a meathead. Meatheads were a rare breed back in the day,
Yeah.
and now they're everywhere.
Huh. Because I mean, when you think of 80s and 90s wrestling, it was a lot of meatheads.
No, I was talking about not just in wrestling. In wrestling, they're not.
In general, yeah, no, bodybuilding.
Because people are
Right.
trying to be Instagram influencers,
Right.
or
You're totally right.
people who lift weight,
Just looking good, even not even
Right.
being in anything, just being on social media looking good is a
Right.
drug to a lot of people. You know.
Yeah. They, well, I think Eliza Schlesinger had a gimmick. She had a bit that she used to do about like the P90X. Like you're what are you getting prison body? You're getting a prison body so that you can work at fucking Best Buy. You nerd.
Who are, you know what? Yeah, there's another good question. Like, who are some of your comic influences over the years? Who are your favorite stand-up comedians?
You're gonna be surprised. Maybe you won't, but Mitch Hedberg, number one.
Okay,
Number one all-time favorite, Mitch Hedberg.
I can see that. I can see that one. Absolutely.
Brian Regan.
Okay.
Dane Cook was a big inspiration for me. He was really he hit me. He came out and was on the scene at a very pivotal age. That I was at a very pivotal age of like being influenced.
Yeah.
I still say Pablo Francisco all the time. I know like a lot of people don't know who that is.
I'm not familiar now.
But also like 2003 when Pablo Francisco was like kind of big, he like influenced the way I spoke and the way I like would act out stuff.
Right.
Like just as a comedic person, not that I was a comedian, but Mike Birbiglia, Daniel Tosh.
Okay.
Really love John Mulaney.
Okay.
Damn, dude.
That's
Brian
a good
Regan,
taste, man. Yeah.
Brian Regan, Pete Holmes. Those are some of my favorites. I love Neil Brennan. I love Dave Chappelle. I have such a deep respect for comics, and I love like any new special that's on, I watch it.
Yeah.
Like the Bill Burr, huge fan of Bill Burr.
Love the older Bill Burr. that new, me and Joey got into that the other day, the new special. I'm just like, man, that did not hit me at all.
Well, it seemed like it wasn't for him. It felt like it was for him to put over. It was like he was just putting over the young boys.
Joey's favorite comedian is Dave Attell, and I fucking love Jeffrey Ross. Like, love him. I loved his roast master stuff. And I was like, Jeff Ross is watching what he says. I'm like, that's not Jeffrey Ross. That's not, that'd be like Andrew Dice Clay doing clean comedy. Like, what? You know, it's not them. And I'm like, Joe, you didn't see that? He's like, yeah, I kind of saw it. He's like, it wasn't a comic set for us. Cause I'm like, Jeffrey Ross and Dave Attell playing that, what do they call it? Like dueling
bumping mics. Yeah.
That's fantastic stuff. And they've done it on the podcast and stuff before too. And I'm like, just felt so unnatural seeing it on that special.
Well,
I'm like,
bro,
they're way too good to be that. You know what I mean?
It makes me sad. It makes me very sad to know that bumping mics is happening without Gilbert or Bob Saget around. So I think that they both are feeling those very recent losses, right, and it's affecting their voices. I don't know for sure
I
if
guess
that's
I
what
didn't
it
think
is.
of it like that. That's a good fucking point, man. I really didn't think of it like that, but yeah.
Uh, but like, dude, Joe
Yeah.
Rogan, I love his stand up. Um, Mark Normand, Todd Glass.
Not familiar with them either.
Okay, well, check those guys out.
Yeah, no, I was like,
Uh,
absolutely.
Ari Shafir has some good specials. Tom Segura,
What do you think of
and
Jesselneck?
Jesselnick's awesome. I saw Jesselnick in PA. He was at the casino in what was it, Bethlehem, PA, or something.
Okay. Okay.
I I went and saw Bert Kreischer. I went and saw Bert Kreischer a couple months ago,
Yeah.
and when I was there, I got the COVID.
Oh, no. During the crazy Russian bit, did you get it right?
Oh, the machine.
The machine.
Yeah,
Yes.
he did the machine. He can't not do the machine.
Oh, that's his bit now.
Yeah,
That's forever. Yeah. It's like Dane Cook and the pickles. You know?
but sweet and sour sauce all over my pussy.
Yeah, man.
Bro,
That's quite a dais you got. You got a lot of it.
it's way larger, dude. I have a fandom of comedy that is rival to my fandom of pro wrestling.
Oh shit, very good.
The first stand up comic I ever saw, and what made me go, yeah, I want to do this. I was like 6 years old, and I saw Rosie O'Donnell on VH1.
Really? Rosie O'Donnell. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's, and it's like, I didn't even know that was what it was. I didn't even know that was called stand up comedy. Like,
Right.
my mom's cousin would always tell me I should be a comedian, and I was like, I don't even know what that is.
Right.
But I'm hyperactive kid, very, very hyper, always.
Yeah.
And my mom is such a sarcastic person, and she's so quick-witted that she gifted me that wit to get dad jokes,
Right.
to get dad jokes out there. Like, I learned dad jokes from my single mom.
That's fucking awesome.
Dude, I think, I mean, not necessarily a stand-up, but I mean, Adam Sandler was a huge comedy influence. Jim Carrey, huge for me as a kid.
Norm Macdonald.
David Spade, Norm Macdonald.
Okay.
Yeah.
David Spade too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All of those. I used to say that my mom was sarcastic like David Spade. I was like, if David Spade was a middle-aged lesbian, he'd be my mom.
David Spade looked like a middle-aged lesbian for a while there. That bowl haircut. Yeah. And yeah, no, there's definitely some really good comedians. Patrice O'Neill, I liked a lot.
Yeah,
I love
Patrice
Mark
is
Maron. Mark Maron. I like the depressing comedies. The guys who are dark. Patrice O'Neill was dark comedy. Mark Maron is dark comedy. Like, it's a lot of self-deprecation stuff, which is hilarious to me, because it's like, oh, I get that. You know, I understand that level of self-deprecation. You know,
Were you into O&A?
oh, loved O&A back in the day.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
Jim Norton and
Yes.
Louis C.K.
Yes,
Oh my,
absolutely.
oh my God, Louis. I would say
right
Louis,
there. Yeah.
Louis is on such a pedestal for me as far as like genius comics.
Yeah.
And like, and it's almost like he never promised to be anything better than what he presented himself as.
Right.
And it's like, are we gonna, like, all right,
Comedy
when he
was so organic.
right,
It was always about, you know, this is me dealing with my fat. This is me dealing with my kids. This is me dealing with my girlfriend who can't even look me in the eye. Like, Louis C.K. was such a great everyman comic.
one of his like breakout jokes, one of his like big famous jokes in the beginning was about knowing how good of a person you are by figuring out how long after 9/11 you jerked off.
Yeah.
It was like, for me, it was between the two buildings fall.
Yeah.
Like he told you
Right.
from the beginning that he's okay with sucking. He's being a sucky guy sometimes. Like
Yeah.
what he does kind of sucks, and it's masturbating.
And not even just his stand-up, but his shows were both good.
Yeah,
What
Lucky
was it, the one
Louie.
Lucky Louie, which was that Showtime? That was
That was an
Showtime, right?
HBO.
Oh, it was HBO, right. And that was fucking hilarious. And then even the FX Louie, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always felt it was messed up that he never got his shows back, but yeah.
Did you watch his last special? He had a special just come out like a couple months ago.
The one,
I had to buy it off his website. It's called
yeah, I haven't seen it. I did know about it, but I didn't pick it up yet. Yeah, I did know about it though.
And Shameless was the one previous to that.
Yeah,
he's still trying to put stuff out.
yeah.
What about Legion of Skanks and those guys?
Every once in a while, I'll hear an episode here and there.
Like-
Legion of Skanks, Cumtown. There's a few of them. There's a few other podcast groups I'll listen to here and there. I don't think I'm religious to anything though.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'll just pick up like, is it a good episode? What you know what it is? My influence. When people start talking to me about, oh, did you listen to this week's episode? I'll be like, no. And then I'll go listen to this week's episode. If it's something important enough for somebody to say, oh man, did you hear it? I'm like, no. And then I'll go check it out. Like, I think that's how a lot of people are with podcasts too. You know, it's like, oh, this was a real good episode of Soup. You got to go check it out. Then I expect people to, that's how it works, I think.
Well, I have to say to you, and I want to make sure I state this on the record because it's super important for me to say every single time how grateful I am. The fact that you've spent the currency of your effort hanging out with me. The fact that anybody who's listened to any episode of this show or like hung out with me and whoever my guests are, dude, it takes, like, you can't just turn the TV on and this be on. You can't just turn the radio on and this be. There's extra steps that you've got to take, and the fact that you've taken those extra steps and not only took those steps but continued to hang.
Oh, sure, man.
This
is a good conversation. I'll stick around as long as a good conversation stays good. If I'm having fun and I know that people will listen to us, it's good, man.
So, with that being said, I wanna kind of pass the question giving to you and let you at this point say or ask me anything as far as like stuff that would be helpful for you to get the information on.
All right, I'll throw you out an interesting one. What is ultimately your goal? No, that's the wrong way to say it. When you see yourself with wrestling, with podcasting, with stand-up comedy, how is it that you want to be remembered? What do you want? How do I put it? How do you want people to value your memory?
Okay.
Deep cut, man. Deep cut.
I feel more like I want more than anything for me to create these memories for people while they're there, like something that there's a valuable takeaway from any conversation I have with anybody, any match anybody ever sees, any set I ever do. I want there to be something valuable. Where I say on stage a lot, I'll say, like, if you take nothing else from tonight, I want you to take this really important part. Like, it's like the ability to zoom out and switch perspectives on things, and be sure that you're not sure. Uh, we did this interview years ago with Tugboat with Fred Ottman, and Fred Ottman told this story where he said when he first made it into the WWF, Macho Man told him, there are no guarantees in this business, Tugboat. Anybody who's gonna guarantee you anything in this business is more full of shit than a Christmas turkey. So there's no guarantees in any of this, except for the fact that like this moment's here, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. So let's be here. Let's be here and experience something that could be changing to the moments that follow that.
Okay.
And for sure, I hope that somebody would like buy a T-shirt and like
Right. No, totally.
Like I say this constantly. If there's stuff I say that can be something that you apply to your life, or if it's like a saying that like you'll quote forever, and you want to start using it, fucking use it. If you credit me, cool. If you don't, whatever. Because it's an impression. It's an important life, lesson to like go. Oh, these messages sometimes aren't just for me, and they're not for me to get credit for every single time.
Right.
Like for sure, if you want to give me the credit, I'll accept it. If you want to get more ears and you want to get more eyes on me and what I'm doing, yeah, dude, like awareness. Like I said, the representation and all that. The representation is super important because, bro, like nobody I've ever met does all the things I do, especially not doing the things that I do and doing them the way I do them.
Right.
And having been somebody who's overcome the things that I've overcome, like, and like has the perspective of like being raised by a poor single mom who has MS and came out as a lesbian when I was 12 years old. Like that's not something that lots of people have. No. On top of that, having a gay brother and having a gay sister who's married to a woman, and all these different kinds of things, like these different perspectives on things. That's why I really feel like when I say how important it is that everyone feels heard, whether you're right or you're wrong, you sometimes just need someone to hold space for you and acknowledge that you're valid in having the opinions that you have. So yes, the guy who's writing the book about how to be a pro wrestler and not pay for wrestling school, maybe the money that he makes off of that book, he's going to go use and pay for wrestling school. And then the funny part about it is when you were talking about the biographies, for the longest time, I wanted to release an autobiography on myself. But I remember I started writing it and I was like, this is traveling down a bitter road. And it seems like I'm just putting ink to paper on like the angry thoughts that I didn't have social media back then. I couldn't write that stuff out. So it was like, I just wanted to make sure I put it down, and I put down the whole project, and I was like, you know what? I'll pick this up when it can have a happier ending. I'll pick this up when I know that I can make it make sense. But then I finally got to a point where podcasts started existing. Yeah. It's like if I put out a book and then like 5 years from now, someone reads the book and they're like, hey, in the book, you said this thing that was completely wrong and I don't agree with. And I'm like, well, like I didn't have a second book out to tell you that I don't feel that way anymore. Right. But I have the opportunity on this show to 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 evolve, the way I thought about it, and
Absolutely.
and grow and change. And it feels like, to me, the the podcast was an alternative to having a book
Yeah.
and telling my side of every story. Ugh. But maybe one day I'll do it again. Maybe one day I'll start it. I wanted to call it Building a Castle.
If it's kind of funny, I've been playing with some new technology for the show. I use this program now called Descript. Without getting too technical, I use like Adobe Audition, I use Pro Tools, I use Magix, I use Sony Soundforge. Like I have a ton of different software that I've always fucked with, in order to make the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
There's this new program called Descript.
Is it like Dragon software, like you speak it?
Close to it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also kind of in a reverse way. So it's like Dragon, where you can talk into it and it recognizes your voice and it puts your voice to text.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also where you can type text and it'll read out loud your voice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a training software. So you would train it by talking. I read like a 30-minute script of like different wrestling books and stuff, and I just started talking into the mic, and it recognizes your voice and it understands your verbal patterns and your algorithms. So I can literally type out a column, hit play, and it'll sound like I did my own podcast. It's me literally talking, even though I haven't said a fucking word.
Wow.
And vice versa, where I can sit there and talk and it picks up every single word like an autobiography. Me and Joey did the show last week, Thursday. Was the first time I used it. Our show, which went 2 hours, was 53 pages on text.
Wow.
And he was like, man, we could make an autobiography with this thing. I'm like, yeah, in probably a week. So, I mean, the technology is so crazy now, too. I mean, could you imagine just literally knocking out a whole book about your own life in 1 week? It's wild.
Do you know my favorite wrestling books?
Yeah.
I have to say the first Jericho book.
Yes.
That was my favorite one. And the funny thing is like around the time I read the first Jericho book, was right after that I was an extra in WWE, and I got to go there, and like in the book he was like, hey, if you ever meet me, come up to me and talk to me about like how you win an arm wrestling match, I'll show you. And I was like, I'm gonna go up to Jericho and I'm gonna ask him to show me how to beat anybody in an arm wrestling match. For sure, I'm gonna do that. And like a lot of the other cool stuff in the book was he was making jokes like the way I would make jokes, and he would say things like the match ski, like you throwing skis on stuff. That's something I do.
Right.
Like a lot of it, I was like, oh, I relate a lot to this guy. I feel like we'd get along real well. And and when I went there, I didn't talk to him. I was too nervous.
Oh.
Dude, Chris Jericho was forever my favorite wrestler. Like
He is an everyman. I'll be honest, dude. Like, not just wrestling, but the dude dances, he sings, he's got a band, he's got a radio show. Like, he's kind of a fucking everyman. He's in that same plateau with like a guy like Rogan, who's doing announcing, he's doing stand-up, he's doing a radio show, he's MMA and everything else like that. Like, there are just some people in the world that they can do everything.
Well, I think that some of that is what inspired me. He inspired me in so many ways. He was like, hey, I want to be a rock star, so I'll become a rock star.
Right.
He didn't come out there and he didn't say, hey, I want to be a rock star and then never do it, like many people do. A lot of people are just so used to being reactionary to how the world happens. And they're just kind of observing their life and just learning to react to the world happening to them. And Jericho, like me, I feel, is an intentional creator in his existence. And I thought that inspired me a lot. I think the the funny thing was, is like he, I guess somebody tweeted something. Somebody tweeted something some years, not some years ago. It was during the lockdown. Somebody tweeted something. They were like, oh, it's how is he a heel? And all the fans are singing his theme song, and I was like, the fans in the building. Like, I responded and I replied to that tweet and I was like, the fans in the building during the lockdown are trying to show the audience at home that like it's still kind of normal. Like it's still kind of normal. And like some of them are like people who are paid to be there. Like
yeah.
And I was like, it's just in an effort to kind of make it all normal still, because things aren't normal. And Jericho responded to that tweet and he was like, no, they're not getting paid. They're doing it because they're having a fun time. You jerk. Or he called me like an ass clown or something, whatever Jericho says. And then like tons of Chris Jericho stands were all like, this guy don't know shit. He don't know shit about wrestling. He don't know shit about Chris Jericho. I was like, I was just talking about how like I'm inside of the business. I know how it works.
Right.
Like, I wasn't saying like Jericho sucks. I'm a huge fan of Jericho. And then he bashed me on Twitter. And like all his fans bashed
awful,
me.
Man. I'm sorry. That's
and I was like, I responded and I was like, I was not in any way saying that like it's bad. I wasn't like, but I was like, it's been my dream to have you on my podcast.
Right.
I was like, I said, I had reached out to your agent. Your agent said, how many downloads do you get? And then she said, well, that's not enough. Contact us back when you get way more, because Jericho doesn't do anything that's like, I'm not even going to talk to Chris about this because it's so small time.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay, well, all right. Well, now that Jericho is hitting me up on Twitter, I'll see what he says.
Nothing.
Yeah. And his fans were like, yeah, his agent was right. You are too small. You're not a big deal at all. Nobody cares about you.
So gross.
And I was like,
that's a different kind of gross, because those people are in the vein that they think that you're trying to bully Jericho. And it's like, come on.
I was like,
that sucks, dude. That actually kind of makes me feel a little bad for you.
And I go like, bro, I think the only chance I ever have at making any kind of living in the wrestling business, if everything goes the way it's going now, would be if I get a little bit of an exposure in AEW, and then people start discovering my podcast.
Right.
I think everything I do is fit to serve every other thing I do. I want it all to be very cyclical. So when people go like, oh, this guy's a wrestler. Oh, he also has a podcast. Oh, listen to his podcast. In his podcast, he talks about how he does comedy. Oh, he does comedy. Oh, well, this guy's also an actor. He's been in a bunch of movies and TV shows and stuff. You know, he's also a wrestler. Oh, and then it jumps right back to that same circle that goes all the way back around. But now I've shit all over their talent.
Right.
And I'm unprofessional piece of shit.
See, that's difficult, because I understand that from the broadcasting perspective.
Mm-hmm.
My show, even as early as 2011 and stuff like that, was doing very good numbers. I mean, in 2012, we were invited as one of the top sports programs in all of Stitcher to go to the awards show. I mean, we had Mark Maron literally reading off our name, you know, and having us up there and stuff. But my college that I was going to at the time refused to acknowledge my existence. Mm-hmm. They had connections to all these different radio stations, all these different terrestrial stations. I could have even used the college campus radio and stuff like that. They refused to acknowledge it and did everything they could to hold me down. This is my college that I'm paying money for. And they did everything they could, not to necessarily sabotage me, but not our problem. Whatever you do is whatever you do. And it wasn't done in a way like, I'm just this big fucking rebel against the system. But I think it was seen as, you've already learned how to do this without us. Ergo, anything that you do, we don't want to be a part of it. And it's like, this was the whole reason I got into college for this, was because I wanted the connections. Dude, my one connection was they wanted me to go to Bangladesh for 2 years, 2.5 years. Never been to Bangladesh in my life. Would have been a hell of an experience. I would have had to have left my family behind, which was ultimately the no-sayer. But they were guaranteeing me 6 figures a year because they wanted American speakers. They didn't want just somebody to come over there to do radio. They wanted somebody that could speak English with an American affluent. They wanted, my nuances. They wanted the way I said things correctly and incorrectly at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only time that they reached out to help me, but it was such a big jump, and I didn't do it. And I'll be honest, man, to this day, I still go back and I think, I'm like, fuck, what would my life have been if I would have left for Bangladesh for 2.5 years, for a contract like that? Might not have ever continued doing wrestling, Soup. Who knows? Might have been wrestling with Great Khali.
I hope you don't beat yourself up for that at all.
No, but I mean, you always go back and wonder. And I don't even do it in a negative way. I do it in kind of a fun way, like an imaginative way, where you sit there and think, wow, all that culture that I could have done. I mean, I can still go to Bangladesh. Nobody's stopping me from going over there. It's just,
It's, your voice still exists. Your accent still exists. Your pronunciation still exists.
Right.
Your accent still exists. And now it's even more seasoned. So maybe at this point you could probably ask for more money.
And that's the same thing with you and Jericho. I mean, you look at the way that people responded to you, even though this has been your career, this has been part of your life for so long. And even though they said negative things, not necessarily to stop you, but just to be that barricade for a moment, it doesn't prevent you from being Corey Castle.
I think the way I looked at it at the time, and what I even said to him, and I'm sure so many people follow him, and so many people say so many things all the time that I'm so forgettable in the amount of interactions, as far as I'm sure if he gets somebody that says a comment that he doesn't find to be nice, I'm sure he doesn't look at their profile and see who they are. He'll probably only quote the tweet or just tweet back at it or whatever. I don't, and I remember saying, I'm going to get there. There is definitely way more than one way up the mountain, and I'll get there. Right. I'll get there. And you can join me when I'm there if you'll be cool enough. But I will continue to want what I want, and I'll continue to dream how I dream, and no nasty tweets are gonna pull me off my track.
Yeah.
I have bigger dream guests than Chris Jericho.
Right. Right.
He is for sure. He's been my favorite wrestler since I was a kid.
Sure.
And for sure, it is a dream guest of mine, but it's not the dream guest. It's not the only dream I've got.
Corey, this has been amazing, dude. But I gotta bounce a little bit, man. Thank you for having me on, man.
Quick 2 things,
sure.
And then I'll send you off into the sunset with a hot dog and a handshake. All right. The segment I do on the show usually starts wrapping it up. I call it audio time travel.
Okay.
So this audio, this video, this platform, this is going to outlive us.
Sure.
One of us isn't going to be around. One of us isn't going to be around to listen back to it.
Right.
And the other one is still going to be here. So not just that. I found that was really important for me. I remember my mom when I first was deciding to start this. My mom she had saved these voicemails that her mom had left her, and she's like, you know how like when people die, you forget what their voice sounds like, and I was like, I don't want that for me. So I want to make sure a lot of the things I do and say on the record get mentioned. Like I had a really good friend of mine was on the podcast, and we said all this really important sentimental things to each other, and then he passed away, and that helped me through the mourning process a lot. So that being said, this on the record stuff, I'm going to say audio time travel is let's say 20 years from now, who knows where we're going to be. So in 2042, you're speaking directly to the people who care the most about you, your biggest fans, your biggest supporters, your wife, your kids. If you happen to have kids in between now and 20 years from now, you're speaking directly to those people. What messages can you give to those people that are time stamped on how to be a better version of yourself tomorrow than you are today?
Watch your credit score. My God, watch your credit score. Uh, it's kind of a running gag with me and Joe, but it's true. It was like because Joey asked me that one before too. Not exactly like this, but he's like, "Yeah, what's something that you wish you could have learned a lot earlier?" And I think he was expecting some kind of like deep revelation about humanity and the structure of how we do things, and I'm just like, oh, I wish I had a better credit score when I was younger. Oh, but
Something I frequently say that I don't think gets mentioned enough. They don't chisel your credit score on your gravestone.
yeah, that's true.
That's
Thank goodness for that, or else I'd have a really small headstone. It'd be underneath the earth. It'd be like a cup. Uh,
dude. I just replied to a tweet earlier. This guy said like, "Hey, do you think anyone's ever effed in a casket before? Like had sex inside of a
oh,
casket?" And I was like, "What? You never heard of the Mile Under Club?"
I like that. That's good. Mile
Uh,
under. Oh
so
shit.
uh,
As far
hypothetically,
as yeah,
hypothetically, I've gifted you this show. This has been the first episode, the pilot episode of your new podcast, Evolving with Anthony Missionary Thomas. In a very Jerry Springer's final thought type of way, you want to wrap it up in a pretty little bow, the most important takeaways from this conversation, and you know how can other people be inspired to evolve?
oh wow. Look in the mirror. I would say that that was one of the more important lessons. Look in the mirror, and instead of judging your faults, take Corey's challenge here, and not only judge your faults, but look at the positives that you've made since you thought you were your perfect self. I love that. I thought that was a really nice, wise piece of advice there. Even though it was a challenge, it was good advice in itself. Um, be open to a lot of different things. Don't pigeonhole yourself into one identity. I mean, you yourself, you do stand up, you've been in movies, you've been a wrestler, you know, it's all different aspects and avenues of your life that you've tried to excel at all of them instead of one thing. And I've always felt the same way too. It's there's a lot of different prospects to go on. You are not your job. You are your passion. You are not your job. You are your passions. And the final thing that I would say that this episode was important for is just looking back on the structure of way society changes when viewing you. The way that you stand in 2002 is completely different than the way that you stand now at 2022. Although it might be a little achier for you now.
Yeah, taking lots of bumps.
It might be a little more creaky in the morning.
My bump cards. My bump. I got two of them.
Did you at least get a free sub?
They gave me two bump cards. I got a pre-brain surgery bump card and a post-brain surgery bump card.
Yeah, that's a big one, man. Wow. I mean, that's important. to not only value who you are, but to value the way other people see you as well. I like that, dude. I thought that the show was pretty leaned back. I'm happy to have done it. Now I'm curious about going back and listening to some of your other episodes. So there you go. There's another question I have for you. Out of your 276 episodes, what's one of your favorites?
Um, I I think I'll have to say my episode I did with my mom was my favorite. I got to say to my mom some stuff, and I got to hear her say some stuff that I didn't know, like very like important shit that I'm gonna take with me for the rest of my life. And my episodes I've done with my girlfriend, Alyssa.
Okay.
So those have been really important and really fun and good and interesting and entertaining, because the the first conversation her and I ever had was just like this. This is the first conversation that you and I have ever had like this long. This is the same kind of thing. This is like how her and I got acquainted with each other. So
Right.
It's really a cool timestamp on where I was and where I'm headed.
Nice, man. Very cool.
Do you do any impressions of anybody?
Oh, not anymore. I'm horrible at impressions. The impression guy on our show was always John Draper. He was always the impression guy.
Okay.
But
When you say not anymore, what ones did you do?
I used to do Triple H. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. I can't. My voice is a little too. I can't get it right no more.
So, in your best version of your Triple H impression, can you say the way we wrap up the show? We usually say, "Be fun, have safe, keep evolving."
Be fun. Keep evolving. Stay safe. It's horrible, dude. I'm not even a. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for hanging with me.
Thank you, dude.
I hope we get to do this again.
Yes.
I'd be happy to be a guest on your guys' show anytime for sure.
Absolutely.
It'd be a dream come true for me.
Thank you, Corey. Dude,
This was important to me, and I'm fucking excited that you did it.
Dude, this is great.
I'm excited that we're friends now.
Absolutely.
Before we were just peripherally people who knew of each other.
Yes, the Facebook circles. Yes.
Well, like, bro, I've been a big fan of you for a long time.
Oh, I appreciate the hell out of that, man.
So it's cool to know. It's cool to know that
I didn't even know that you listen to our show. That's how wild this is, man. This is cool as fuck.
Everybody listening, if this is the first time you've checked out the show, maybe take the challenge of going back and checking out old episodes, making sure also you subscribe so that you catch all new episodes, and hit the like and subscribe, share, comment. Make sure. I love to know that you guys exist. So if you comment, I can absolutely know that you exist. I want you to also know that I very much exist. And if you want to reach out to me, judgment-free conversation, I will absolutely respond to you. I'm not a hard person to get a hold of. Dude, be kinder to yourselves, be kinder to others. Be fun, have safe, keep evolving.
Appreciate it.
Oh.